When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me, shape-shifting in the night, stalking you. Does my face seem familiar? Does my back tell you more? Will I change you or will it end you? And the power that I have can give you eternal life. Death doesn't know me. I've become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me, where the mist, she follows me. I walk alone in the night, watching you, following you, leading on you through the night. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me. All your life I was still, I become the living dead. I own the darkness and know how beats inside of me. I become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me. caution, my friend, this could be the end. A mermaid's tale, you're mortal, so frail. I'm a figment of your imagination. Our beauty, our soul, intoxicating. Mesmerizing sound, ships running round. In calm or storm, you won't see the shore. Your final resting place, the ocean floor. Swirling and twirling, the warmth of the ocean. Spinning with souls in motion. Take caution, my friend, this could be the end. A mermaid's tale, you're mortal, so frail. Swimming with the souls of men untold, watching their demise unfold. Never to grow old, their stories never told. The souls of the sea are now caressing me. Your final resting place, the ocean, the sea, the murder of men, no one will ever find them. Swirling and twirling, the warmth of the ocean, spinning with souls in motion. Take caution, my friend, this could be the end. A mermaid's tale, you're mortal, so frail.
There it is. Still there. Well, I asked my audience to help me with this. Look at this. It's not going away. What are y'all doing? Every cure you gave me did not work.
I told you to get Sarah V.
I'm extremely disappointed in
Yeah,
you.
turn your volume down.
It's like, it's ridiculous that I should have to ask my audience for medical advice and you can't give it.
It's ridiculous that you should not listen to me and buy Sarah V.
I don't want. Do you know why I don't want to buy?
It's 9 out of 10 dermatologists.
What is Sarah Lee? They make pies or cakes or something. What are you talking about?
The TV said so. The TV wouldn't lie. If it wasn't true, it wouldn't be on TV.
TV's always right.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna be on TV.
Just like the news. I mean, like, why would they say it if it's a lie?
Well, they wouldn't put me on TV if I wasn't right.
Well, they said on TV Sarah V works, and so it works.
That did. One time, Anthony, we're waiting for the chat to fill up, man. When chat fills up, we'll start here. But tonight we have a guest. We can't BS too much. But y'all probably like, thank goodness. No, we were at a Jack in the Box drive-thru one day. It's been years now, probably 7-8 years ago. But we ordered. You remember that, Anthony? What did we order? Three.
I'll never forget that. Yeah.
Tell a story. Tell us.
Well, so I can't be on camera because StreamYard doesn't let us do that. But yeah. So anyway, it's probably over 10 years ago now. We were at a Jack in the Box drive-thru in the middle of the night. We had just finished working out, and we ordered like 3 combos, and we pull up to the window, and the guy gives us our total, and he's like, $75 and some change, and Wolf kind of pauses for a second because he's waiting for the punchline here.
I thought he was joking.
And the guy just sits there with his dead-eyed, like fluoride stare, and then Wolf's like, okay, we ordered 3 combos, and the guy's like, yeah, and Wolf's like, okay, that's not $75.
It was 76, actually.
Yeah, whatever, $76. And his response is, I'm not kidding, like, he was sitting there with his mouth hanging open and his tongue halfway out, and he goes, "That's what the computer say." And Wolf was like, "Okay, I don't care what the computer says. Do the math. That's 3 combos. It doesn't come out to $76." And oh well, that what the computer say.
And then he said, "What do you want me to do? Change the computer?"
Yeah.
And I was like, so I told him, I sat in the drive-thru, and I kid you not, this is what I did. I went like, I said, "Welcome to Costco, I love you." And the guy goes, "Excuse me?" I said, "Welcome to Costco, I love you." And the dude was like, "What are you talking about, so I can't understand you?" And I was like, "Exactly. I don't understand you either." And so I sat in the drive-thru, and I acted like I melted over, like, in fact, dude, I kid you not. I looked at the time, it was like 4:05 or something like that. It gets to like 4:06, and finally he goes, "Excuse me, sir, you're gonna have to leave. You're not going to pay." And I was like, "Are you joking? Is this guy, you know?" And so I was like, "I'm dead." Like, dude just goes, "Are you okay, sir? Do you need to call the police?" He didn't say, "Can I call an ambulance?" And he wasn't worried about my health. He just, "Can I make you leave?" And I told him, I said, "Okay, dude, do whatever you got to do." And then I told him, I said, I said some choice things, not really, really rude, but I wasn't going to eat at that point. I didn't care because I wasn't going to worry about them spitting in it or whatever. And I said, "Are you, you know, mental? Like, what's wrong with your brain? What's wrong with you, dude?" And he goes, "Nothing, sir." I said, did you graduate high school?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Failed education system." Absolutely. And he asked me, "Did you?" I said, "No, dude. I'm a dropout. I'm just stupid. I don't. I'm homeless. I don't even have a car. I stole this car, and I'm getting ready to go dumpster diving and see if I can find some food."
I think his mom stood by the microwave too much when she was pregnant with him or something.
I mean, it was ridiculous. Thank you, Zachary Factory, for that donation. It was surreal. I was like, is this guy for real? Like, what is going on here? This guy, like, totally. It was unbelievable, like how stupid the guy was, and he was dead serious. He was going to try to make us pay. I said, "Can you do the math?" I said, "Do the math." I mean, this was, several years ago, back before the inflation was what it is. And I said, 3 combos, one for me, one for him, one for Tony. I said, this isn't hard. Okay. I said, "Dude, it's literally like $34 with tax." I said, "What are you doing?" And he just was like, "Yeah, what the computer say, I do what the computer say." I said, "So if the computer told you to go jump off a bridge, would you do that?" "Well, no." I said, "Okay, then why would you do that?" "Because you made a mistake." And I was so mad because there was nothing else open. So we had to go like 3 or 4, exits down, and we're working. And I was just so bad. I clowned that dude so bad. I was just like, so the next day I debated, they call it being a Karen, I guess, a complain or whatever. And I thought, why should I complain about this at all? And I was like, it's not going to help. It's not going to change his stupidity. He's still going to be stupid. And I didn't pay for it. So
I mean, it's kind of our fault for going to Jack in the Box overnight. We should have known better.
they never get through. They're terrible.
If they even come to the window to take your order, like they're usually back there sleeping on the grill, just sprawled out across it, smoking weed and just passing out into a
Remember
coma.
that time we were in the drive-thru, and the girl was in the lobby and she was chatting on the phone.
Yeah.
And we drove up and we were like, "Is he working at night? You're going to have that kind of situation." And I honked my horn and I'm like, "What?" And she's like, waves, and then keeps talking to her friend. Like, she was being a real smart ass. And so I was like, "Okay." And like, I threw like a half orange at her at the window. And it was like kind of smushy. And so it just went boof, it like slid down the glass. We just drove off. Lucky they didn't call the cops, because they probably would have, for whatever. And then I see like 3 or 4 employees come running out the door, like ready to do something, and it's like, you could have been ready to just make our food, and an orange wouldn't have got, a half rotten orange wouldn't have got thrown out your window. But whatever. Lucky the Beagle. Haven't seen Lucky the Beagle in chat lately. Glad you're still with us. So It is what it is. We're waiting for the people to show. I don't know what happened to these people. Like we sent them the link.
Yeah, they haven't.
If they don't show up,
because they
folks, you know
haven't
what
checked
that
their
means.
Facebook. All right, let me tell them. Let's tell them now.
They waiting for the.
Well, one of them.
Well, I mean,
he's waiting on
one of them's
you.
the guest, but the other dude, I don't know what he's doing. No.
Might text him on his phone. Because sometimes they'll get notifications for text messages, but not for their messenger.
So we got to do a gig in the morning. So some people called, and I don't really want to work for these people. So I just did something funny. Like I was like, my buddy calls me up. He goes, "Hey, got a job for you." And it happened a couple times today, which was like unusual. It's like just two people that I've never dealt with before, and each of my partners calls, and they said, "Hey, I got," and I didn't want to take either one. And this is synchronicity at its finest, folks. This is weird. I've had a lot of weird synchronicities lately. And one of them, he said, "Hey, I got a job for you, and it's for so-and-so and so-and-so." And I don't like them. And I said, "Okay, $50 an hour." He goes, "Okay." And he calls me back. He says, "Done." And I'm just like, really? Now I got to cover it. And then the other one calls, and he had already told me. He says, "I told him 45 because I know you didn't want to do it." And I said, "Yeah, I don't want to do it." And he says, "Oh, $45 an hour." And I'm like, "Really?" And they just agreed. So I was just like, whatever. I mean, so then now I'm stuck. So I may have to go do something myself during the day, which really sucks but you have to stand there for 8 hours. So wish me luck. Hopefully that'll work out. Moon at Noon. We're waiting for that to go to our iTunes. If you're interested in buying or downloading those songs, go to iTunes under Paranormal Sound Table. The YouTube is kind of clunky, and it's one of those automated YouTube channels. So we may have to we're waiting for the people that we deal with to give us a response on an email. I hate email because people they don't respond. They'll take like money out, and then the 2 days later they'll decide to email you back if they grace you with their whatever. So if you go to Paranormal Sound Table, you can find our songs, and it's on YouTube. But the thing is, YouTube is with that, it's like an automated channel. Like I said, we can't really I don't know what we're doing with it. So it may suck because we may have to take it down and then go get another one. Jason Broussard, thank you for that, man. Troll the Cult Camera Fund. Yes. Because we do need some stuff here. We need these two cameras are goofing off. And then the people we share the electric bill with, which I don't think is correct, they're not paying their part. So we're having to pay their part and our part, and on the promise that they're going to pay us back, and we'll see how that goes. So that is also bunch of crazy bull crap, going on here, dude. Been snake bit lately, but that's okay. We'll get past it. It's all good as long as we got the show and we have fun. We do what we do. It's all good. I don't really care. I mean, let it. It's crazy, dude. And I had somebody call me asking me if I wanted to get a loan. And honestly, the way this guy talked, I thought, "Are you a loan shark?" Like, I didn't know who this guy was. And so then he goes, "No, I'm with such and such finance. And you had a loan with us one time." And I'm like, "When was this?" Because I don't remember. It must have been like years ago when I started my business or something. And he said, "Oh, it's been several years." I was like, "Yeah, I can tell because I don't remember." He goes, "Well, we have your name on file." And he's like, I was ready. I was ready for him to was this comedian one time. He was a black dude. And he was talking about he goes, "My cousin's a Crip. And he he works as a loan officer." And he's like, "Let it rain, let it drip. Get a loan from a Crip." That's what I was thinking. And this guy was like going to start rapping to me or something, dude. So I was sitting there on the phone. I was kind of like, "Is this for real?" And so I was like looking at the number, and it did say the name of the loan company. And I was like, so I said, like, you work there? And he's like, yeah, I work here. And he's like, yo, dog, yo, for real, check it. You got to come down. I was like, dude, I started laughing, man. I was just like, okay, dude. I said, it's for just the way you talk. I was like, he goes, yeah, it's for real, man. And then he gave me the end of his zip code. He's like, I was raised in the zip code, blah, blah, blah. And it's where Scorpio's from. And Scorpio's from the hood, like the real hood. When I met Scorpio, he had only been out of a literal street gang for about 2 years. And so he got a job with me. So when I went to hire this kid, Scorpio, he's only like 3 or 4 years younger than me. I went to hire him and I said, what experience do you have? He goes, well, I was in a gang. And I was like, that's not really the experience I'm looking for. But you're not a punk, So we gave him a job, him and his buddy. And now him and his buddy that I hired back in 1999, they both work for me now to this day. So shout out to Scorpio and Kenny. They're still working with us. But, it's funny, man. I was talking to my friend Reinhard. He's from Belgium. And he was like, are they still working with you? I said, they are. Yes, they are. So people work for us for a long, long time. So we got a few minutes here before the guest comes on, and I'm waiting for someone else. I thought he wanted to come on tonight, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's not interested. Maybe he doesn't want to be a part of the show. I don't know what's going on, but thought he was going to be on. Sanguine Rain says, I like the video about Petra. Petra. I have a little bit of an update about that because someone came to me when I was at the club, and my hat was on tight. Look at that. What the hell is going on with that? Weird little pumpkin pie haircut freak. So I was at the gym, and like 3 different people came up to me that I've talked to, and I've said this before, that people at the gym, I've given them my information, and they listen to stuff while they work out. So I'll tell them, hey, if you're interested, I got a show. Some of them agree, some of them are like, yeah, whatever. But I usually see the same people, and it's funny because I've given a couple people the heads up about the show, and when they see me, they're like, uh-oh, like I'm gonna go up and give them a quiz. Did you hear last week's episode? You're lying. That is not what happened. And so I'm not going to mess with them if they don't. I just say, what's up? I don't even try to. But most of the time, the people will come up to me. And here recently, we got a guy from the gym who gave us an incredible story, which was it's pretty cool. And I told Anthony, I said, we're doing really well with people from the gym. Because a lot of those people, we work out at night, typically, not always, but most of the time. And I think these people that are at work at night or they're up at night, they see stuff that other people don't see. That probably is part of it. And so this one guy, and I'll say this is how you get, if you are an aspiring podcaster or a YouTuber, I'm going to give you some advice. Okay. And I mean this with all sincerity, and I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I will say this. If you're an aspiring podcaster or YouTuber, listen to what I'm going to tell you. Okay. We're a pretty successful unit here. And I told a couple of my colleagues this over the weekend. We were all on a conference call, and they were asking me for advice. And they're smaller channels, and this is what I told them. I said, look, if you sit around, when you, this is what I told them. I said, when you go to get a story from somebody, I was like, well, what do you do? And they each gave me what they did. They said, well, I get the story and I do da 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 da, and then I do, whatever. And I said, that's good. The other person, she was like, I do this, blah, 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 blah. And I said, that's good. That's cool. I said, but let me ask you this. I said, do you ever ask these people? Because this should be a habit. This should be whether you're a researcher, and I've even had author friends of mine that I've told this is what you should be doing. And I'm not telling you what to do, but it's a tried and true method and it works wonders for us. And this is one of the reasons why we're able to get so much information. I said, you need to talk every time you interview anyone, you talk to anyone. Because a lot of times the people that send us the stories are not the listeners themselves, it's somebody they know. But I said, you should ask them if they themselves have anybody that they know that has a story. And a lot of times they'll be like, you know what? I know somebody, and they'll hustle them up for you. And I said, that's something you need to start doing every time without fail. When you talk to someone, whether it's in a group chat or anything, you need to ask them about their stories, find out who they know that has, whatever. Anthony, why don't you hop on too for a little bit? Because I don't think we're going to have the other guy. I don't know what's going on with him, but that's fine. Could be he's been in, he's had health issues, so maybe that's what it is. So I tell people that's what you need to do. You need to this is what you got to do. And so that's some advice. Take it or leave it for you. What you want to do, take it or leave it. And so I'm saying, like, just pick up the link, like, do it, and join us. You can just go in the next room, whatever, and do the. Because I don't think we're going to have a next other person. But I think what you need to do is always ask them if they know somebody. Here is a synchronicity. We got about 10 minutes, and then we're going to jump on with the next guest. I have a synchronicity story, another one, which is really weird. And get this, if this isn't weird, okay. I was talking to a guy who saw a chupacabra. He told me, Nelly, and Anthony that he shot one. Now, I'm not talking about this. He said it kind of looked canid, but it had these ridges, these spikes on its back, and he shot it like 2 or 3 times. And I don't want to give it away because the guy said he'd be willing to come on the show. So we were talking over the weekend. And then there was another guy who had told me, and he works at a restaurant we like to go to, that he had seen a pale crawler in the woods of California. And he'd be willing to come on and tell that story. And so I thought that was incredibly interesting. So in the same day, I talked to both of these guys. Get this. I end up, you can send one to Rye too if he wants to come on. Throw the link to him if he wants to jump on. He's welcome. So I in the same day, I end up getting a guy who messages me. Well, he messaged me like a week ago, but he re-messaged me. And he says, you remember me? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah. And he said, I have seen a chupacabra looking creature, which I don't know what kind because I didn't get into it with him. I just saw the message. And he goes, I also saw a pale crawler. This is like after I talked to 2 different guys who saw one and the other back to back. And then this guy messaged me. What's even weirder was that his name was Dana. And then the guy that one of the guys that I was talking to, his last name was Dana. Then later on that day, my friend Evan, who one of them's last name was Evans. So my friend Evan was the head of security. He's the one that's looking into the reports of the cannibalism going on with the homeless people. So he gets in touch with me, and I told him, I said, dude, this is weird. You're calling me out of the blue. I haven't talked to him in a while. And he says, I wanted to talk to you about that. We had talked a few months back. He goes, well, I got some information, which he did. And so I was like, that's really cool, man. So, you got these people who literally are reaching out to you and telling you this stuff, this wild stuff, but it's all in the same day, people with the same names, but just a little bit different. And they're all talking, and these guys are talking about this, similar stuff. And each one of them said that they knew somebody. Get this. Each one of these guys, each one of them, and there were 4 different ones, even the guy that messaged me, because I messaged him back, said that they know somebody who they think has seen a dogman or, werewolf, dogman, whatever. So I have yet to flesh out any of those stories, but that's pretty incredible. And that is, if that's not synchronicity, I don't know what is. It is so, how do you explain? That's a very weird thing. And that all happened on like Sunday. And then you got these people who have these abduction scenarios, and they're very similar. 2 people, two people, a male and a female, two different parts of the country. One was from Maine. Get this, the other one was from Florida. And both of them had a abduction scenario that was almost identical, to the point where I was confused which one was which. And that happened, well, not in the same day, but one was one day and then one was the next day. And so I thought, this is crazy. I mean, so, you got to look at these these synchronicities. They happen and you're just going like, this is bizarre. It is so bizarre. And so, like I said, a lot of times people will give you information, and you got to do your due diligence, whether you're a researcher or a podcaster or an author or an aspiring, any of those things. Pay attention and ask questions if they know people, because we were talking to a waitress the other day who had a story, and I was like, do you know anybody who's got one? And then she says, I do. And then she emailed me like a couple days later. So this person at the gym comes up to me and they start telling me about my podcast, and they're like, hey, this is really crazy. I met this person that had so they introduced me to a person after they told me their story, which was pretty riveting. But they introduced me to a person who had a pig man story. And we don't get many of those. We've had a couple, and then I have a goat man one. So I'm going to give you on Sunday the pig or hog, whatever it was, humanoid hog thing, which like Anthony and me were talking about it and how creepy it was. That one, and then there's a goat man. And then I'm going to tell you about Carlos, who was actually a vampire that was at the Temple of Shay, who had something happen to what happened to him. And he was connected with Joel. Okay. So he was actually supposedly a vampire. And then there's another one that I want to tell you about, the scarecrow, because I didn't tell you what happened to what's his name? He's got a weird name. Jared, not weird name, but Jared. Or I'm sorry, yeah, Jared. So he had an encounter, who was the guy that had the scarecrow thing mess with him. And then now his son's kind of having some weird stuff happen. That was a Halloween episode from like 2019 or maybe 20, something like that. And so then he gets on there he gets on the email. He sends me all this story. I can't even, it's so long. So I read some of it and then I just said, can I just talk to you? So we talked, and then he told me, about what happened to him. And this was the guy's friend who had the scarecrow thing. I said, man, I wish you would have told me this a long time ago. But anyways, those are the stories you're going to be hearing on Sunday. And I usually don't tell you what we're going to talk about, but be ready, because that's coming on Sunday. You better be there. It's going to be crazy. Well, we got a full house here. Anthony, show yourself. Let's see here.
I'm here.
Show him your shirt, man. That shirt is lit. That is the land between the.
Can you see it in the lighting?
Apologize to Barton and Letitia. Was cleaning my study out, and I found your shirts. Not the ones I sent. That was different. The ones, but the land between the legs shirts that I had made for you. So I'm going to send those out, and folks, we are tonight. We're going to get all the mail off stuff together, and hopefully get it done by tomorrow. Get it done tomorrow. So it might be a few days after that. Let's bring on Rye. What's up, Rye?
Not much, Josh. I was just listening to you, and I've been dropping the ball. I see your advice that you're saying for all new podcasters is something I have not been following. Where you're saying, ask your guests if they have anybody else, if they know anybody else who knows or seen something. And I'm like, oh man, like I literally have not been doing that.
Yeah, that was some advice that I was giving some people. So this is something that one of my friends who's an author, he told me, he says, you should put on a workshop. And I was actually going to reach out to Tony Merkel, which I've talked to him a couple of days ago, just messaging, whatever. But Tony's a good friend of mine. And I was going to approach him about, maybe me and him, and he's a very busy guy. He's like me, but maybe just giving some advice to some of the smaller podcasters or my friends from Expanded Perspectives. And maybe we do a little roundtable and we just do some advice giving to the smaller podcasts, because I want to see everybody succeed, Well, not everybody. I'd be lying if I said that, because there's some people, I don't want to, I'll be real honest. There was this guy that reached out to me, and when I looked at his Facebook profile, he had like this something on there, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "No, I'm not going with this dude." I mean, he's like, basically saying he's a proud Satanist, and I'm like, "Nah, we're good." Shit. I'm not. It's just like that goes against everything I believe, and I was just like, after that, I was like, and he's got all these like tattoos on his arms. He's so proud of them and showing, and I was like, "Dude, no, man, to each his own," but that's just me personally. That's not cool for me. I'm not good.
But when it comes to normal people, it's not as competitive as people try to make it out to be. I mean, there's enough at the table for everyone to eat, and that we've been saying for a long time.
Yeah, and people don't get the concept of like Rye. You and I are good friends. We're pretty close now. If you make it, I make it. It's like I help out Barton. Barton helps me. Blondes and Booze, we help each other. Me and Bettina, we're real tight. Yeah, I was talking to HCs today.
Yeah, that's exactly what I say all the time. The rising tide raises all ships. Yeah.
So if you make it, I make it, and then you're connected to the people that made it. I had this long talk with Adam Davies about that one day, and he was just like, lamenting the fact that there's people that just cannot play well with others. And I say that's how it is. But what you got to do, though, the ones that do, they need to be rewarded and they need to be helped. And if you can help them get into the spotlight and get in, I don't understand this. Like Tony's got a much bigger audience than me. And I had somebody, and she wasn't trying to be she wasn't starting.
I saw that too.
Yeah. They weren't trying to start anything, but it just seemed like they were kind of taking, they're a big fan of mine, but I don't want them to disrespect somebody, And then somebody private messaged me and says, "Well, you got to try to do for you, And I said, I don't believe in that. I believe doing what we got to do for us, but we're all in this together, So let's bring the guest on here. Nick, what's going on, man? What's going on, brother?
Not much.
So you want to introduce yourself to us? Hi, this is Nick, Anthony, Nick Willard.
Nick.
Hi, Nick.
What's going on?
So Nick. Tell the folks what you do, who you are.
Nah, I just start telling stories. That's why we're here, just for the stories.
Tell stories now or leave.
Shotgun stories. That's it. We don't care.
I don't have a whole lot of personal stories myself, but I have looked into a lot of things. And I'm definitely one of these smaller podcasters that you're talking about. So yeah, I got a small podcast called Almost Canon. Way up here in Vermont in the North Country.
Cool. Is it still cold up there, Nick?
Yeah, we're actually getting like 2 feet of snow tonight.
Oh, wow. We're pushing Easter almost, Well,
I know. Yeah. And it sucks. I mean, I'm a postal driver. That's my day job, so I'm gonna have to deal with that tomorrow. But that's tomorrow.
You look kind of beat down by the weather. Like today when I talked to you, you were just like, dude, it was like
sick of it.
You're slogging through the snow, I guess, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, work 6 days a week, then do this. It's pretty rough.
Yeah. So how you feeling though? You feeling ready to talk? You want to talk about some stuff?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and just slam that Red Bull. Let's get going here. Don't drink it too fast. And he's like, "Hey guys, I think I gotta go. I'm not feeling too good."
Gotta last me all night.
So Nick, you have a few experiences yourself, though. Let's just start with those. Let's start with what you got. What happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, they're nothing too big or exciting, but I guess my most exciting one would be, I think it would be a Bigfoot encounter. I didn't actually see anything, but whatever it was literally right there, not far away from me. I don't know if it was just, I don't know. I don't know if it was cloaked or hiding in the trees or what, but I remember it was opening day of rifle season. So it would have been like mid-November 2017. And my grandparents, they owned a bunch of land, like my whole family, we own a bunch of land. I'm really the only person that hunts up there. There's one other guy that goes up but there's really nobody else, right? It's always just been me and this one other guy, and I'm going up, and he's coming down, and he looks scared. So I asked him, I was like, so, how's the hunting? How, what's going on? What's it like up there? He's like, oh man, I just got scared. I mean, I was sitting behind this boulder, this rock, and this bobcat comes out of nowhere. It runs, jumps over the rock, and just takes off into the woods. And I'm like, oh wow, that's weird. He's like, yeah, I'm getting out of here, So I was like, whatever, and I kept going up, and I'm working my way up this hill to this area that we know as the Petty Moan. It was like this dude, his last name was Petty, and he mowed this. It was an old field. It's all grown in now. And I'm working my way up this hill, and I start hearing what sounds like a turkey. But as I'm getting closer, it's almost like something trying to sound like a turkey. It definitely wasn't a turkey. And as I'm getting closer and closer, it's starting to sound more of a growl. And then I definitely get, I don't know, maybe 20 yards away from wherever this thing was. It was off to the side of me out in this like thicket of trees, and it just drops, the turkey calls and just starts growling. And I don't think it was the bobcat. It didn't sound like the bobcat. And I'm like, my brother-in-law was with me, and he was really little. He was probably like 10 or 11 years old. And I'm like, we gotta stop. We gotta stop. And then all of a sudden we hear these tree knocks. And, I always thought tree knocks were kind of a joke until I actually heard them. And it was like, boom, 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 boom. And I was like, this feeling came over me. I was like, we got to get out of here. I had my rifle, my handgun. I was fully loaded. Whatever this was, I could have easily shot and killed it. But I was just like, I got to get out of here. Something's not right. This is, I was scared. So we just left. I mean, I don't know what it was. But if it was a hunter, if it was another hunter, I mean, that guy was playing fast and loose with his life. I mean, I could have easily. There's people here, they're called, I think they call them like sound shooters. They just shoot. They hear something and they'll shoot it. This guy, if it was a hunter, I mean, he could have easily. He was playing with his life.
So Linda, in your dreams, asks, where did this happen at?
In Vermont, southern Vermont. So, I mean, Vermont's a small state, but southern Vermont, kind of north of Brattleboro. I'm sure I tell people I'm from Vermont, and they ask me, what city, what state is that in? But so a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people don't even know where Vermont is.
That's not that's not even because you live in Vermont, dude. I've heard people. Okay. Literally, I did security at this school because there was an incident that happened. It's probably been 15 years now. But the kids there, these weren't little kids. These were like middle school kids. And, this is crazy. They're learning Texas history at that time. And I was talking to one of the teachers, and she was very upfront about it. And she says, half of these kids don't even know the difference between a state and a city. When you ask them what state they live in, they say Austin. These were sixth graders, and she was like, "What in the hell?" Like she looked, tired. She just looked like she was like, it's just so bad.
Grew up on an iPad.
Yeah, they don't know much at all.
So Paw Patrol and Coco Melon and whatever other garbage.
Yeah, that Coco Melon is a mind-numbing thing, man.
Yeah, we were over at Anthony's brother-in-law's, basically my niece's husband. Great guy, really good dude. Pray for him. He fell off of a roof. He got hung.
Oh shit!
Like, yeah, he. What is not a roof? What is it? He's a billboard. He works.
It was a billboard. He's a billboard technician. And he fell off. He fell off of the billboard, but he had his harness on. But the way he fell, the harness wrapped around his neck and was strangling him. And luckily, his partner was strong enough to pull him up and rush him to the hospital.
Yeah. So we were over there the other day, and he was sitting there looking at the TV, and he was like, and it was just Coco Melon and Baby Shark, and that's because they have a baby now. And the stuff that was on the TV was like, rah, rah, rah. I was just like, I couldn't handle it. I was like, what is this, dude? He goes, yeah, it's horrible. Because just sit there. you know, he's had a couple kids already, so but they're older now. But he was like, I thought I was done with this. You know, this is now. So yeah, that's what kids are doing. It's like a babysitter. You put them in front of the iPad or the TV.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's really sad. Unless they're watching PRT, then it's all good. They can be.
Yeah. It's better than watching kids unbox toys or whatever those channels are.
Yeah, looks like
hundreds of
Rye
millions of
disappeared.
views.
He got abducted and he lives in Mexico, so who knows what might have been happening there. But anyway, Nick,
He got beamed
so
up.
tell us some more. You said you had like I think a ghost encounter too. Before you get into other people's, tell us what happened.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that bobcat. I think that bobcat was running from whatever whatever was up there. And actually, I returned to this site, this location where this happened in I believe it was February of the next year, so a couple months later. And there was a deer that had been killed. It was all ripped up, hair everywhere, blood everywhere. But there was no carcass anywhere. There wasn't any drag marks where it had been dragged away. It was strange, and it was right in the same location where I had these weird sounds coming from. And what I think happened, I mean, I honestly don't know. I think whatever it was picked it up and carried it off. I mean, there were no drag marks anywhere, so something I've always wondered about. But yeah, that's pretty much my only Bigfoot encounter. But I do have a couple ghost stories. Nothing too serious. But one of them was pretty weird. When I went to college, I was staying in this house. My uncle, he inherited this house somehow. Like he had co-signed for this guy who ended up dying, and he got stuck with this house. And this house happened to be a half an hour away from my school. And I'm staying at this house, and it's old. It's run down. There's like holes in the floors, man. I got like trash bags in the windows, like as curtains. Like I was super poor. I was going to school. I had no money. This house was falling apart. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll stay there, right? I'd have kids come over, parties or whatever. People would just come hang out. And my friends, we would be upstairs. The downstairs was a mess. The upstairs was pretty nice. I'd fixed it up a little bit. And my friends, they would have full conversations with another friend downstairs, only to find out that the friend they had been talking to was upstairs the whole time. Happened to multiple people.
Wow.
And the people that it happened to never talked about it to anybody else. They had mentioned it to me in passing, but I don't know. It was, I don't know. I mean, I never really experienced anything at all other than them telling me that. Yeah, I don't know.
So Nick, let me ask you this: like you and Rye both, y'all have smaller podcasts. And I want to know if you guys like what kind of stories have you gotten from people? Like, like I know you've had a few little encounters here and there, but what kind of stories have you gotten that stick with you that you could share with the audience? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I just talked to someone. Sorry. I just talked to someone. He was in, this happened in like the 70s or whatever. And he was staying in a cabin. He had a lake house or something, right? And he was staying in the cabin, and he wakes up one morning, 4:00 in the morning, and there's a Bigfoot crouched down right next to his bed, watching him sleep. The Bigfoot, he sees the Bigfoot's eyes. They get wide, like, oh shit, oh crap, you're seeing me. You're not supposed to be seeing me. And this thing, it jumps up and just like, he didn't even say it ran away. It was just like a flash of like a bolt of lightning, and it was gone. House was locked, no footprints anywhere. He doesn't know how it got in there, doesn't know how it got out. Mystery.
That sounds very reminiscent of an interview I had with a guy named Jason. He had one or two Bigfoot inside his trailer, and that's exactly like you said. Like they're inside, and he had no idea. Everything was locked, closed up. How did it get in there? He had no idea. It was a big trailer. He figures that they somehow turned into, because earlier he had seen orbs moving through the woods, and somehow he's thinking that is how they passed through.
Right.
That's something that I was getting to see. Now, here's the thing. I didn't bring Nick on and Rye to carry the show. I just wanted you guys to be on here. You're smaller podcasts, and I wanted you guys to be a part of the show. Check out their show and give them some support, because there's a lot of people that are up and coming. And I like to showcase people who are doing work in this field. But I want to go over a couple of encounters that I got, and I want to get your opinions on it. And how would you handle this? Because it's weird. Okay. It's always weird. Let's start with this one. And I want to know what everybody's idea is on this panel here. I guess we could call it a panel, right? We call whatever we want. We could call it Bubblicious Fisheye on Rye, whatever you want to call it.
When it gets in the middle of the story, I do need to be behind the computer, because I just realized I can't moderate if I'm on my phone and here.
There's no moderators going on?
Well, I mean, there is, but I mean, I need to see like what's going on, because sometimes people get hidden by accident or something. So I'm just gonna I'll be off camera, but I'll still be on the show. Just
no big loss. We don't see you. We're good. It's whatever.
Well, y'all are being deprived of my beautiful visage, but it's okay. Right, y'all will live.
Well, I just, you're so beautiful. I don't want to be, because I don't want to be jealous.
Well, he's got a great shirt though. You got to admit that.
He's got a cool shirt. Look at mine though. Look at, nobody's a Star Wars fan. Come on.
Oh, General Grievous, of course.
Grievous.
Yeah.
Except he's always got asthma. He's like, you're like, okay, whatever.
No, he smokes too much. He's smoking too much. Yeah.
The vaping. He's got the popcorn lung.
Yeah.
Dude, Nick, let me ask you a question. Now, you live up there, way up in Vermont, and folks, I don't know. This is why I wanted to talk about when you came on, because when I saw that you were from Vermont, I thought it would be interesting. And of course, Rye, a lot of people don't know he's actually a degenerate Canadian. But
exactly,
we'll forgive him for being a Canuck or whatever.
He's one of those people.
He's one of
them.
People.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, he's one of them.
But he's one of the good ones. One of the good ones.
He likes hockey. I like hockey too, though.
Hockey's cool.
Yeah,
you have to if you're Canadian. You have to if you're Canadian.
They're tough.
Yeah,
tough
people,
it's a cool
man.
Sport. I had a friend that played hockey, and he was like brutal, dude. UB. He went to UB.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So years ago, like 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I'm old now, but here's the thing, like this. People say that the Wendigo. We're gonna talk about the Wendigo for a second here. This, and I don't like to preface it with this is what it is, because the person that told me the story did not say this. But if you look at the somebody talked about the knot deer on my group the other day. And if you're in the Paranormal Roundtable group, you see some weird stuff. People talk about some crazy stuff. So this guy was talking about the knot deer. And this guy private messaged me, and he goes, "Do you really believe in all this?" I said, "Man, I don't know what I believe half the time. I just throw theories out there and think if this is, it's possible, this is possible, it's all possible." And then people get upset. This is how it goes. They don't like what you say because they feel like they own the rights to tell you whatever. But that's part of being a podcaster. You'll eventually experience that. And people, let me give you some advice. Don't get too close to some of your listeners, because they will try to tell you how they want things to be. And you got to be nice and respectful. So this guy, he's a listener of the show. And he's like, that's one thing I don't like when you talk about the knot deer, because I don't believe in that at all. At all. Then the weird thing is, he says, my wife's cousin had an experience with one of these, but I don't believe him. And so I'm like, and then he was saying that he thinks it's creepypasta. I said, the guy just posted his encounter, right? And it became a big old thing. And then I said, and then now you're telling me that you're related by marriage to someone who saw one of these things. And this is what he said. This is how things get so twisted up. And get this, his name is Nicholas. So it was Nick, Well, that was funny that you were going to be on tonight. So Nicholas tells me, and he was adamant to call him Nicholas. I said, okay, Nicholas. I said, all right. Nicholas tells me, he says, knot deer is a Wendigo. I was like, so you're going to believe in the Wendigo, but you can't believe in the knot deer. And so he says, I saw a Wendigo wearing antlers. Then he proceeds to describe to a T. And Nicholas, you did this. You're in the chat. Don't lie. You described to me a deer on its hind legs. So was this a Wendigo or was it a knot deer? Now, a lot of people say that the Wendigo didn't have antlers. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's a weird looking thing, right? And so I said, here's the deal. And this happened in your neck of the woods. It happened in Vermont, according to his cousin or whatever. And so I said, this happened in Vermont. He goes, yeah, it was on the border between Vermont and what is above you guys? Maine or what is it? Right above you? Yeah, whatever. It happened in the border. And he said, because that city you live in, Vermont, I don't know what it's called, the country you live in, the country of Vermont. Yeah. And so, the county of Vermont in New York. Okay. It's also in Spain. But he said that, he goes, dude, it was a weird thing. He goes, I saw it really quick. It ran across the road. He goes, and I slammed on the brakes. I wasn't going very fast. And he goes, and I had one of those monster drinks and I was trying to pick it up and I looked and I'm like, whoa. And I slammed on the brakes. And at first he thought it was like a guy in a suit and it went across the top of his hood of his car and it stopped. And he said, but it was crazy because I didn't stop the car enough to avoid hitting it. But he goes, it abruptly stopped my car with its weird looking hands. And he said it looked like a deer on its hind legs, but he's convinced that it was a Wendigo. And I said, so your wife's cousin saw this. This is what he saw. And he said, yes. And this is what he told him. And so I said, this thing stopped. He's like, yeah, but I don't believe him. I don't believe him. And I said, so he saw a not deer. And now here's his story. Okay, that was the cousin's story, in case you didn't know. And then he said, one day I was driving I was camping. He goes, we were way up in Maine. He's like, and we were camping at this campsite, whatever we like to go to. He goes, I was 13 years old. He goes, and we were camping and bow hunting. And he says him and his dad encountered something. And here's what's really weird. He goes on to describe basically the same creature that his wife's cousin saw. And he goes, well, yeah, but I saw mine when I was young and my dad was a witness or whatever. He goes, my wife's cousin saw it and there was no witness or whatever. And he didn't talk about it until after I talked about mine. And so I said, what does it matter what you call it? Because it is the same darn thing. What he saw was what they thought was a deer. Then it stood up on its hind legs, but it didn't have antlers. Didn't have any antlers. And he said, and I know what I was looking at. He goes, but then as it walked toward the tree, it started rubbing its back up against the tree. He said it had the upper body of a man. You couldn't see the definition because there was like a slight fur on it, but where the chest was, there was not a lot of hair. And he said, before our eyes, this thing like grew like a little bit taller. It like stretched out and it looked thinner and horns popped out. But the horns, it looked like a deer, but with like bull horns came off of it. And so he's like, have you ever heard of anything like this? And I said, actually, yeah. I mean, we had a guy on our show who saw a pig looking, what do you describe it as? Like a wild hog or something?
Yeah, he thought it was like a razorback.
Yeah, and it literally turned into a man. Not just a man, but like a man with clothes, and it stood up and it walked off with a backpack like a hiker.
What?
Yo, dude, it was weird. He was on our show. He told that story.
Yeah, so and it wasn't like a shapeshift in the movies. It was like it shifted into like this intermediary form, which is like this black mass. Like this black goo mass, and that the shape of that black mass is what shifted shape into a person. And by the time he was done changing shape, that it was like a complete person with like clothes and everything.
That's what baffles me is like clothes and like you said a backpack. Like
he said a backpack too, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine like like maybe no clothes is kind of naked kind of thing after you change, but it's wow. I don't know. Maybe he's got his lunch in there.
So when you get these stories and you're sitting there and you're telling these people, you're like, and the guy was kind of argumentative about it. He's like, well, he didn't see the same thing I did. I said, your cousin or your wife's, he kept saying my wife's cousin. I'm like, okay, your wife's cousin, Nicholas. Nicholas, what you told me was the same thing. It's the same thing, except the horns were a little bit different and the way it stood up and I was like, but what is the difference between what was seen in Vermont and what was seen in Maine? What is the difference? What is the difference with that? I don't understand that. And so I thought maybe, Nick would have all the answers because he's from Vermont. So I chose that so you could give us the answers. Tell us what is this, Nick? It's up to you.
I have no idea. I mean,
folks, if you have it, don't listen to Nick's show. He's done.
I'm kicking him out of the.
Goodbye. Good day to you, sir.
Get out of here. You bothered me.
I said good day to you, sir. Go ahead, Nick.
With the Wendigo, I mean, if you look in the history books and you go back to, Abenaki lore and Algonquin lore, They're two different things almost. In Abenaki lore, where I'm from, Vermont, this area, the Wendigo was like an ice giant. You know, it was known more as an ice giant with a frozen heart that would eat people. You know, and you go more towards the Great Lakes, it's more of like a zombie-like creature almost. At least that's how I understood it. And then over time, you know, it's evolved into this almost like a skinwalker type thing, you know. And I believe it's almost like a curse, you know, like dark ancient magic, like some sort of forest. I don't know. I want to say forest spirit, but that, you know, like almost like a fae being, you know. And I'm all about the fae. I love the fae. And that's exactly what the Wendigo sounds like to me. You know, it's a curse. It's a living curse that's set loose in the frozen. You know, it thrives in the frozen north. But it's almost like some sort of dark magic, which aligns with skinwalkers because, you know, you hear stories of skinwalkers. A lot of people, they tend to forget that it is a witch. It's not necessarily a beast or a creature. It's a witch, you know, someone who practices dark magic, and they're able to transform into these animals. Almost the same thing could come from the same type of magic. I don't know. That's how I look at it. I mean, I don't really have any answer. I don't know what it could be. If I was to make a guess, it sounds like some sort of fae-like being.
Like some sort of like what they call, and Rye, I don't know if you would agree with this, but Nick, you know, because Nick, you just showed your medal right there. That's spot on. Last night, Ron Murphy was on with me and Blondes and Booze. I'm on Blondes and Booze every Thursday, so go and check them out Thursday, and then they're on right before us on Friday. So they were doing a good. They had a guy, a Dogman encounter came on, and was talking about it. And I was trying to get ready, and I was listening at the same time. Those ladies are excellent. They're wonderful, and they're right up there with Bart and Nunley and all you guys. You do a really good job. That's good, Nick. You know your stuff. But this is what I was telling this guy, though. I said, dude, there's really not much difference other than the horns. They weren't really antlers. Antlers are not horns. What this guy saw was horns. He said, well, that was why I thought it was a Wendigo. I said, a Wendigo doesn't technically have horns. I said, so you saw something more akin to a knot deer. And Nicholas, we agree to disagree because here at PRT, apparently I'm always wrong. So it doesn't matter. It's like whatever you want to believe, you can believe. Thank you for the story, though, but I appreciate that. And that all came from somebody's post about, not deer.
What about, Josh, what about like a minotaur of sorts, you know, if it has like bull-type ears, if it's walking upright, slightly some hair.
But it didn't have a bull-like body at all. He said it was very much like a deer, you know.
Okay.
But I think it's just a matter of names. People just want to play the name game. Like this is a deer.
Exactly.
Yeah. And people want to be right. They always want to be right. They want to be like, you called something a skinwalker. That Native American shapeshifted into something, but he wasn't a skinwalker. And you're like, he was from a different tribe. And you're like, okay, so what's the difference? You know, I mean, we're talking about semantics here. People want to argue semantics all the time. I always think of it as like, you know, strain on a gnat and swallow a camel. It's just, you know, that's what we do as people. We make mistakes. Yeah. Miguel Guetta says, I just said Minotaur. Yeah. Because we did this story about the devil in Durango, and it was one of the stories we did was this guy who saw a minotaur. And what were they like? I think they were like at a lover's lane or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he went to this lover's lane, and, you know, the last thing you want to do when you're trying to get fresh with a girl is for a minotaur to show up and be like, hey, what are you doing? And, you know, you're like, damn, I was just trying to do this. I'm sorry. You know, what do you want? You don't eat beef. Obviously, I have a hamburger here. Don't do that in front of me. He slaps the crap out of you, tears your head off.
And even worse, that's her ex-boyfriend.
It's an ex-boyfriend.
Oh, no.
You can't share your burger with, because he goes, we were like eating hamburgers. Like literally told us that. We didn't tell that part of the show because it was not pertinent to the story. But he's like, and I thought a minotaur shows up, you're not going to be able to bribe it with a hamburger, like, unless it's a
$76 hamburger from Jack in the Box.
Oh, yeah. So that was a weird story, but you know that whole area down there is like, it's got a lot of weird stuff, a lot of weird energy. I think that whenever we're looking at something like the knot deer, one of my listeners has been a listener for a long time. Shout out to Henri James. I've known him for a long, long time, years. He's been a listener, and I actually knew him before I even did the show. And so funny because he was one of my first listeners or whatever, because we were friends before, but we weren't like, we were in some other group and it had nothing to do with paranormal or whatever. But he was like, I don't believe it's creepypasta, blah, blah, blah. And I said, dude, yeah, but people are seeing it. And the guy that posted that, he had an encounter. And so, you know, who are we to say, well, you're not telling the truth. You know, this isn't real. But we, as podcasters, YouTubers, authors, you know, I'm proud to say now that I'm both, you know, but when you take stories, you have to be prepared for anything. And I can tell you this, when myself, and like I've said this before, when Bart Nunley and Ken Gerhard, I recruited them to do a bunch of interviews. You know, you're talking about 60 different people, you know, and they had stories, man. I mean, a lot of them were very similar. And so it made Ken a believer in the Dogman phenomena. He's like, if I didn't believe before, because he's a Bigfoot researcher, he was like, dude, I believe now. And he's like, and I don't think it's a cryptid. I don't think that's a cryptid at all. I think it's something very, very different. He's like, a cryptid to me is like an undiscovered animal. He said, this is not an animal. I don't know what this is. And, you know, over the years, I've lost some people because, you know, when I started out as a flesh and blood Dogman guy, people were like, you know, they were like, this isn't flesh and blood. This is, you know, whatever. And then other people were like, this is flesh and blood. Why are you calling it this? I didn't know what the hell it was. And so you're allowed to change your beliefs as the evidence comes to you, you know. What are your thoughts on the evidence, though? Because we know that there really is no real hard evidence of these things. All you have is like a ton of people saying what these are.
Now, I have a question, though, Josh, before we go. So you know how people are claiming, oh, it's just a creepypasta. What is the chance of actually the creepypastas giving life to these creatures?
Oh,
you know?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And or there is other creatures or beings or entities that are using the fear that's built up by these creepypastas to make themselves look like these creatures. And, you know, and then people are like, oh, no, it's just a creepypasta. Well, in fact, it's becoming life. It's turning into this reality of sorts.
What do you think, Nick? Tulpa.
Like a tulpa.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe that, Nick?
Yeah. I mean, I do. I know a lot of people throw it around quite a bit. Personally, I think it takes a lot more energy or power to create one than just, you know, a couple people sitting around thinking of something. But with, you know, creepypasta, you got what, hundreds of thousands or millions of people reading these stories. You know, when I think of tulpas, I often think of like these Tibetan monks. You know, I think they go hand in hand. And these guys, you know, they sit there meditating all day for years, and they're creating these beings. So, you know, it takes some serious energy to create something like that, you know. But I mean, it's possible. I definitely think it's possible.
One of my friends is a Buddhist monk, and I consider him to be a very powerful shaman, you know, and what he does is not for me. Like, I would never do that kind of, I would not mess with that, but he is very comfortable doing it. He's been doing it for 20, 30 years. I mean, you know, that's his thing. So I consulted him. I do consult him every now and then. And I asked him about the tulpa, and I asked him about the odds of these things, everything from Bigfoot to Dogman to crawlers, the Wendigo. Could they be tulpas? And he says, yeah, very easily. To him, he said, there are people who can manifest these things by themselves within just one session of meditation. Now, the sustaining of it, that you have to give it some of yourself. You have to give it some of your energy. And he said that it will make you very drained and tired. And if this thing doesn't have what it needs to get energy, it'll come back to you and keep draining you. Because it is like Rye, I think you were the one that was talking about the homunculus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, this is in another form, just a kind of a homunculus as well. Explain
to Nick and the audience what the homunculus is.
A homunculus is like a creation. So here in Mexico, where I live, the most common one is the luches, and it's kind of like you create this thing out of corn, kind of like corn flour meal, and you and other things, and you give blood to it 9 days, and you pray to it for 9 days. Well, 9 nights actually. you add in other stuff, and what you're doing is you are investing yourself. You're creating this like a golem. It could also be that as well. And you create this creature, and it's kind of like very single-minded. It's not like it can think for itself. It has this goal or this job that it needs to do. And here the Alushas were meant to protect families or protect property and land. So that is what more or less a homunculus is. It's something that is kind of created by magicians, magic, black magic, brujas, or even just regular people who have. Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
Oh, I was saying alchemical processes. It's alchemy.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. It is alchemy.
Yeah. That's a whole nother thing. And then, when there was a story I told recently. Somebody came to me at the gym and they were telling me, this guy, Christian Alicia, shout out to you. He's going to come on the show. He's a good guy. He told me this, I can say his name, whatever. But he wanted to tell his stories, and he's going to come on in a couple of weeks. He asked me about the city of Petra, because we did one called, what was it called? The Forbidden City?
Yeah, we call it Horrors of Petra, the Forbidden City.
Yeah, and so the lady that I talked to, and she doesn't really listen to the shows. I can talk a bunch of crap about it. She won't even know. I'm kidding. I would not do that. She doesn't really listen to the show, but she was Danish, but she was very snarky with me. And she said, because if you listen to that episode, I talk about what she did. Like, we talked to her, right? She goes back later on and then gets an attachment. And I'm like, I was like, it wasn't enough for you to do that. It was like defying her mother. And she's like, well, I didn't really believe in God, and I was just angry, and then she's like, had a problem with my dad, and all these reasons, and I'm like listening to her, and I'm like, and finally I blurted it out, and I don't pull punches. And I told her, I said, it's your fault. I was like, you just accept that you did something. She's like, well, I don't need somebody that's 30 years younger than me telling me blah, 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 blah. And I was like, first of all, I'm not 30 years younger than you. Like, I'm like 22 years younger than you. But I told her, I said, look, if you wouldn't have been so in rebellion against religion, against God, against your mom, your dad, everybody, and you wouldn't put yourself in harm's way, and then you drug other people with you. That's a problem. That's a big problem. Let me bring Matt on too. Hey, Matt, what's going on?
Hey guys, I want to apologize. I had some, I don't know what happened. All of my internet, the entire house has been down for the whole time that I was trying to get in here.
Sure, Matt. We
I
all
just started kicking the computer when
we
that
all know
happens.
what you were doing, Matt. We know you were out scoring rock. Don't even try it, dude. This is what always happens when you start podcasting. It's a slippery slope. You'll be robbing liquor stores tomorrow.
He's a big.
So.
You'll be wearing earrings. And you'll be robbing people. Then comes the tattoos. You'll be having tattoos. Did you see that? Look at that 90s. That's not a 90s tattoo or what?
Nice. Is that barbed wire, Josh? Is that barbed wire?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
That is
definitely
awesome.
a generational thing. You're a Gen Xer.
Yeah. You're like, I got the tattoo, man.
I like the tribal tattoo, dude. The tribal tattoos.
In this one here, it says wolf. Okay. Because when I was locked up as a kid, now I was a kid, right? You get locked up as a kid, whatever. But I was always getting into fights. And finally the judge was like, I don't like you. You're always in my courtroom. Go to jail. And so I learned, how to be more of a criminal, joking. But no, seriously, I got this the Indian ink, tattoo, and it was terrible. And it was like WOL, and then the F is way over here. like, what is Wolof,
Wool to the F. Wool to the F.
So I had to get like a cover up there. And so the dude goes, I'm going to put some flames at the top to get rid of that weird. I said, just whatever you got to do, just cover it up, And so I went and I got a barbed wire because, I was like, barbed wire you're a badass if you had the barbed wire back in the 90s. So, yeah, I did that. And I got them on my chest, my back. I had a werewolf on my back, which I regret because some people, I was swimming one day and this lady was there with her kid. And the kid was like, is that a wolf throwing up? I was like, no, it's a werewolf, kid. He goes, doesn't look like it. And I'm like,
it's going to eat you.
I was like, it's eating something. I don't know. So I was looking at, took a mirror and I was looking at it and I had never really scrutinized it. And I said, oh my God, it's horrible. What is that? But yeah, I have tattoos and I have them on my legs and everything. But I keep them covered. Like I don't have them, you know, but nowadays everybody's got tattoos. It's not like my mom goes, "You're going to regret that one day." And I was already like, I was arguing with her. I'm like, "No, I'm not. I was already regretting it." I was like, but you don't want to give her anything.
Yeah, and your skin's going to melt off and you're going to burn in hell.
Yeah.
That's the end result. It's like you get to the gate and St. Peter's like, "You did everything right, my son. You spread the gospel. You argued a bit, but whoa.
Yeah.
Didn't see the tattoo there. In particular, the barbed wire one. Sorry. See, he pushes the button and you're straight to hell.
No, boy, you're going.
No, you know, he's going to be like, look, I got a matching one too. St. Peter will be like, yeah, the barbed wire too, man.
There's no way you're getting into heaven with that. Did you get a cover up?
Real quick to say hi to Nick. I've never met you before, man. Hello.
Oh, yeah, this is Matt from 412. Good friend of the show. Good guy's got his show.
I don't know this Codega guy. I've never seen him before in my life.
Ryan is a homunculus. Me and Nick created him for the show, right, Nick?
Yeah.
Little cornmeal.
That's why I wore a matching shirt. You know, I got the matching shirt, the matching orange, you know, just to go along with it all. Yeah.
Yeah. I told Nick before the show, I said, we need to make a co-host. I don't know how. Somebody small and kind of weird looking. Let's, you know. So that we came up with Ryan.
And I mean, Anthony came out first, and you tried again then.
Anthony,
I kid, Anthony. I kid.
Yeah.
I kid.
Xerox person.
Xerox person there.
That's it. I'm out.
So Matt, to bring you up to speed, Nick is a podcaster, but he's also a mail carrier, and bless his heart, he's out there in the freaking cold. Today I was talking to him, and I could hear him working while he was trying to talk to me.
What state?
Vermont.
Oh, wow, okay. Beautiful state.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but it's cold and it's snowing up there. There's all kinds of stuff going on. If you missed it, we were talking about what do you call it, Wendigo, because there was a thread that caught fire on one of my groups, and of course, everybody's a critic. And one of my old friends got on there and he said, "I don't believe in this. It's all just a blah blah blah." And then another guy said, "That's not what that is. It's a Wendigo." And then, you know, and so a couple of their comments kind of had to get removed because they were, you know, it happens. People argue, and then they act like it's, you know, the end of the world. But the you know, we ended up talking about it, and so he messaged me, and then I said, okay. He said, well, my wife's cousin had an encounter, and he told it, and he said, but that's not a knot deer, that's a Wendigo. And I was like, well, he's convinced it was a knot deer. He told you he didn't, but not, it was a deer man, what he called it. And he said, no, I had a real Wendigo encounter. He went on to describe basically the same thing with some different, you know, ornaments on its head. I said, come on. So it's all a matter of perspective. We're going to go back to you, Nick. I want to ask you a question about the Fae. And what you were talking about makes a lot of sense because last night, Ron Murphy, if you guys all have to have Ron Murphy on your show. And I will facilitate that. I will get him on your show. And another guy you got to get on your show is Chris Garitano. Those guys, they are just spot on about a lot of stuff, dude. Very well versed, very well read guys. And one of the things that Ron Murphy, he brought up last night, which I had never heard anybody talk about this, and we began to talk about this, was this what I call the cloaked hedgehog. It's part of the Sealy court, which is the clean court, which, like Ron said, it's the Fae that are a little nicer. They're not really as mean as the unseelie. They're not. None of them are really nice. But it's an Irish, Scottish. Yeah, it is really weird. So it's like this weird hedgehog looking thing that morphs. It'll turn into different things. Like it'll be a tree stump and it'll look like a hedgehog and then roll away. And it does. And I've often wondered too, if it was like like how the hedgehog like rolls, you know, like Sonic. I thought about that. I thought that's bizarre, man. I wonder if that's where that comes from. You know, it's like the Fae. But I was going to ask you guys and start with you, Nick, because you're a big guy into the Fae. What do you think about these people who have like time that goes missing? And this is probably something would be a good question for tomorrow's show, you know, with the alien agenda. But sometimes people go missing or they'll have missing time. And it'll be attributed to like alien abduction. But what if it's really the Fae? Because I have a couple stories where people have missing time from interacting with the Fae, in particular, eating something they're given. Like, what do you think about all that? Talk about that. Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, they've talked about that for hundreds of years. You know, like you never make a deal with the Fae. You never eat or drink anything the Fae give you, you know, you do this, you're glamored. They'll take you back to the Fae realm. I mean, when I talk about the Fae, we've kind of been programmed to think of them as like Tinkerbell, you know, but what they are I consider Bigfoot a Fae. I mean, there's Native American tribes that talk about them walking in between the spirit world and our world. I mean, what's the spirit world is that, you know, the Fae realm. I think it could be. This is all something I've been working with too for a while now. So I don't really know the correlations between the Fae and you know, alien abductions, but it very well could be. I mean, you hear stories of people going to the Fae realm and being stuck there. You know, like a changeling. They steal babies. They bring the babies back to the Fae realm. You're left with the Fae baby. And I mean, I don't necessarily know how like time would work, but I could definitely see you losing time in the Fae realm. I mean,
I really believe that's what happened with Scorpio. I don't know. I think Scorpion's in the chat, but I always made fun of him. I said, "You're a changeling, dude." somebody took your, and then they dropped you off. He would actually get mad about. He's probably getting mad right now. I'm kidding, Scorpion. Just because you're so ugly, dude. I was like, dude, you're so ugly that they had to drop you off. And his own sister would tease him, you know. But no, seriously though, we've talked about this before. Like changelings, you know. I think it has something to do too with the guys that were werewolf, vampire guy, whatever. It was this show we did recently where they were talking about this baby. Now we have a listener. His name is Mullins. I'm not saying his first name or whatever. Just he said to go by whatever. But you'll probably see him in the group. He's in the group all the time. But he sent me a whole long thing about it, and I want to get him on the show to talk about it, and he will. He's a good guy. But he was talking about, Scorp, you know I was joking. See, Gary. So he was talking about the perfectly possessed babies that are in the womb from these demonic temple people. And one of the things that came up was it was called a moon child. Now, if you do it through the phase of the moon, which I'm not going to give you a play-by-play because who knows what kind of people, you know, would go and listen and say, you know, but that's how you get a perfectly possessed child. And supposedly the pharaohs of ancient Egypt would plan the births around the moon because they wanted the gods to inhabit the bodies of their children. And who's to say that didn't happen? Now, to me, as a born-again Christian, I don't believe that they are gods. I think that they are just entities who played God, and they're not really God. But you know, that's where this confusion comes in. But they would allow these demonic entities or whatever to possess the bodies of their offspring. And then they would, in order to awaken that spirit, because sometimes it would lay dormant, that they would almost like they would abuse the child, like beat it and get it to get it to become like for it to come out, the spirit to wake up to realize what it is or who it is. Because sometimes as a child, this demonic entity, and this was something that was told to me by Gerald and Joel, that they would know that who they were because I asked them. But then other times they wouldn't. And so it would take a traumatic event to make that spirit wake up and go, oh, okay. Because we're very grounded and connected to our brain. And get this is something to think about too. And Nick, Rye, Matt, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but he said that being grounded, like literally putting your feet on the ground, is like a way to, you know, keep yourself balanced. So what they would do is not allow these children to go get into water. Like for a long time, they would never allow them around water. And then they won't allow them to touch the earth with their feet.
Oh.
Because that could break the connection. And then that other that is trying to perfectly possess the child can be let go. And then a walk-in spirit can take over. And that is done according to what they believe. This is not saying this is something I believe. What they said was these angels are always there waiting when it comes to the children. They literally have to either trick or fool these angels, or try to anyway, so that they can do this. That's why it doesn't work so much, because the angels try very hard to stop them from doing these things to the children, to perfectly possess them. Now, different, like just taking someone's life, because God takes them and they're fine. They go to the kingdom of heaven. But a perfectly possessed child is really just a demon that's in a child's body. And so to stop this, the angels, they really do try to stop this, and it becomes a matter of spiritual warfare. And they try to claim these children. So they don't allow them to do certain things for like the first 7 years. Like, it's really weird. Like, he was talking about how they can't take baths because if they're submerged into water, that, which is also like a form of baptism, they will not, it'll break the connection. And yeah, and he even told me, like Gerald told me, that him and his wife babysat one of these perfectly possessed children, and he said that the kid would just sit there for like hours and just rock back and forth like Kevin Spacey in Seven. And it was like they just like don't blink, and it's like just like he thinks, okay, this is like a kid that has special needs, but it's not at all. It is literally a dormant demon that's inside of that body. And they will, instead of talking, they'll be like, and they'll make noises. And then he says after a certain age, they'll start to talk like normal people. And he said that it is very prevalent that these children will interact with what we would call aliens, but they're really like demons. And he said some of them, the first ones that they interact with, are small, diminutive little, like the machine elves. People take DMT and they see the machine elves, and the children they'll be seen with these things in people's houses, and it'll freak them out. And then they'll be like, he said, and these were people from the temple who had seen a lot of weird things, and they would see these children being trolled by these little like duendes. And then they would disappear and then reappear, and and they'd be like wandering outside in the middle of the night and talking to invisible entities. But he goes, I knew that they were being trolled by demons. That's what they were, and the demons were there to try to bring them along. And eventually they will start to interact with the adults that are in charge of that, because it's not your kid. You're just in charge of it. You're like a steward until that thing gets older. And those things are meant to be leaders, and they go into politics, and they become doctors and all kinds of other places where they can be corrupt. And here is the weird thing. He said that because we talked about the Fae a little bit, not Gerald, but me and Joel. And I told Joel, I said, Gerald told me what I just told you. And he says, oh, I'll bring you up to snuff on that. He goes, these entities, he goes, they are what you would think of as like Fae. That's what they are. They are the sub-nature. And I've heard that before because I'd studied that, that they are the sub-nature. And they use these children as go-betweens, like you can walk in and out. And if one demonic entity is not strong enough, then they'll bring another one. And another one until they get it right. And it is hard to listen to. When you listen to this, you're going like, what the freaking hell? These people exist. They do this. This is a real thing. And it's so twisted. But what you're saying, though, Nick, I think a lot of it, people don't realize, like the jinn in the Arabian culture, in the Levant, that's basically just, they're Fae. It's the same thing, except they're from that region. And then there used to be a video game. I don't know if you guys are gamers, but when I was playing, there was a Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
Played the hell out of that game, and I was really good at it. You had to do all this timing and stuff and do the jumps, And then I was sitting there, and I had this friend. He's really smart. This guy named Marshall, and Marshall's one of my old friends. And he says, that's like a demon from Persia, and I'm over there like stoned, and I'm like, what? It's like 21. I'm like, I don't care, man. I work at a nightclub, and I fight for a living. I don't give a crap about that. So I threw the controller, and I was like, well, you just ruined it for me now. I don't want to play this, And then when he left, I was playing it again. I was like, I went back and I looked, and there was literally a demon that was known as the Prince of Persia. And it's in the book of Daniel, where these two angels were supposed to relieve someone, and they were accosted by this Persian demon that was called the Prince of Persia. And you're going like, whoa. And it depends on which Bible you're looking at, if it's one of the codices or whatever, but it's there. And even in the King James Version. And you're looking at this and you're thinking, dude, this is exactly what's going on in our culture. You have all these different, whatever, like it's nothing. They make games and they show all these, like Anthony, you were talking about a game where they were using like a pig man or something.
Yeah, it was like this 8 foot tall, like humanoid, but like he had like this pig head, and he would chase you around with like a meat hook and a cleaver, and he was like a butcher. He was like a boss that you had to beat, and it's really unsettling because it's like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, how Leatherface, like not only was he like a really big, strong guy, but what made him scary to me is that he moves so quickly. Like it wasn't like the lazy Jason Voorhees or Mike Myers, where they just kind of slowly lumbered along. No, like he would close the distance real fast. But yeah, like that's what makes that thing like so just terrifying to me.
So we'll go around the horn here. We'll start with Nick. You're the guest tonight. Give me your take on what I told you about the Fae and how they fit into this, if they do at all, with this perfect possession. Well, because you gotta say it, but
Oh man, they definitely do. So when I heard you tell this the other day, I mean I'm one of the ones who listens to the podcast. All right, I'll admit it. Sorry, but I was just like pulling pieces out of your story, and I was like, oh, that's the Fae, that's the Fae, that's the Fae. I mean, the first thing I grabbed was they call themselves the Others, right? Mm-hmm. Now, we don't have a whole lot of writing about the Fae, but what we do have, it's the Celtic tales of the Tuatha Danann, and they come from the other world. That's what they called it. That's what they wrote about this thousands of years ago, right? Ancient Celts, like Druids. So the other world, that's the first thing I grabbed. I got a whole list of stuff here, really. I'll just go over a couple of them really quick. Like I think personally, for me, I was making some serious connections, but it could just be me. And you were talking about swimming in the abyss and like this dark water, right? So when I was doing some work with the, some primordial beings and stuff like this, and I came across this concept of the primordial beings and the waters of chaos, and how it all, they surround creation of all these. It's almost every single religion in the whole world. They all begin within these these chaotic waters. And there's one from Sumerian lore. They call it Abzu, which sounds a hell of a lot.
Don't say the name, but go ahead. Go ahead.
And I was like, man, that I heard that, and I was like, the abyss, this abyssal waters, and this Abzu. It sounds very, very familiar, Yeah, I mean, they just sound like Fae to me. Mm-hmm. I could keep going on and on, but that's all right.
Go ahead. Go on and on.
All right. So another thing I got here, I wrote this all down. So let's see. There was a story you told of how all these other children kind of were like killing off all the humans, right? They were sucking all the blood out of these humans and kind of killing them off, and they had to put a stop to them, right? And there's this ancient, the story from Egypt about this god. I guess a lot of people consider her to be the first vampire. I guess it's up, a toss up between her and Lilith, but this god was called Sekhmet, and she went ballistic. She was pretty much hired to kill off the human race, all the Egyptians, but then Ra had a change of heart, and they had to trick her into not doing this. And that story sounds an awful lot like this other story. And there's in every bit of lore there's a bit of truth, so I mean, is that the truth that formed this story? I mean, I don't know. It sounds like it could be to me. What else do I got? And I guess that was really it. The major points that I had.
So let's go down to you, Rye. And then we'll get to you, Matt. So what do you think of this, Rye? What is your opinion? What do you think?
Well, one thing when you talk about Moonchild, that also comes from like the Church of Satan when they were, the Moonchild is the rebirth of Satan himself, and they would defile a woman in preparation for this, and to prepare her for the Moonchild to be born, and that was her to be the carrier of Satan, and which was also like, it's funny, the Moonchild possessed would be this a child that would be born that would be possessed by Satan himself, which is crazy. And when you're saying this is all tying in with demons and the Fae, it's really interesting. And this lost time thing, I was talking to Matt about, and I'd mentioned to you a little bit like in a text there about that one individual. I sent that big, huge, long text there where this guy has a couple instances of lost time and, trying to figure out what this is. And I'd never considered Fae. So that's something I never thought of. And this could possibly, he was getting his name called, he was being drawn out into the forest. And then he would wake up unconscious, like he was unconscious, bleeding from the nose, wake up in the field with no trees. Like he said, he got hit by something. There's nothing around, it's like as if he ran into a tree, but there's absolutely nothing. And so, I was thinking maybe he ran into some sort of doorway that was closed at that time. I'm not sure, or like some sort of invisible force field. But when we talk about this in this Fae, it really brings up a whole other aspect to everything, and it's something that I haven't delved much into the Fae myself. This is something that it's come up recently with the interview I just released yesterday with Walter Bosley. He talked about meeting an individual who he thought was possibly a time traveler or a Fae, and he actually gifted this, what he actually believes was a Fae. He gifted them something, not knowing, and by doing that, it actually, he believes though that it helped him along on his journey, because he actually gave them something, like he gave them a gift, this being a gift. So it's interesting.
Matt, what do you think? I mean, you have another perspective on it because half of you is from the Levant. You're half Lebanese, so what do you think?
You know what? I've actually sorry, I lost a little bit of my voice, because when you guys were on and I didn't have a thing, I was like, what the heck? So a little loud.
I can relate.
Yeah. So I heard a lot about, a segment as I was growing up. I remember hearing the name said, and I actually have something on my phone I actually wanted to bring up, that I remember from when I was a child as well. The sun disk above her head reminds us she was a defender of the sun, and that the oasis raising at her forehead marks her as the royal daughter of Ra. Sekhmet also carries, now I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, papyrus scepter. I know scepters, and the ink sign in her hands, which represent her capacity to give life and fertility through the yearly Nile floods in Egypt. And I remember that from when I was a kid. My very I'm sorry, I was going to say that the wrong way. Some of my cousins from Lebanon who would come to America and then they would go back. There were times when they purposely would try and scare us with stories of jinn and other creatures. But when they got deep, I remember when I was a kid overhearing that name and them really being serious about it. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's something that, it stuck with me over time about her specifically. And I found it interesting. I'm not trying to be, ignorant or pompous or male chauvinistic or anything, but a lot of times in Lebanese, the male figure is more pronounced, and they'll give more attention to them. I remember that figure when I was younger. I heard more about that female as I was growing up in terms of supernatural things connected to the Lebanese side of my family.
I know a lot about the Lebanese culture, and like there's a lot of there's different. Of course, there's Maronite, there's Orthodox,
You're
Catholic,
correct.
there's
Yeah.
straight Catholic, and then of course
Maronite.
there's Sunni, and then there's Shiite, and there's a lot of Shiites in the South, and they do believe differently than the Sunni, and they actually fight each other. They all fight. That's why Lebanon. There's so much different. There's so many different religions going on there. It's led to civil war. There have been a lot of problems there. And then there's the Druze, and the Druze have their own beliefs too, and they're little enclaves of them. But in the Levant, in particular, I think a lot of that culture it comes from two places in particular. One is Persia. It spills off from the east and the north. And then another one is Egypt to the west. And then it kind of just floods that area with and then there's like a melding there of those two cultures. Here's an interesting thing about Sekhmet. I can tell you off the top of my head. Sekhmet was around during the time of Horus, Osiris, and Set. And it's kind of like a female Set. But then she was an antagonist, and then she became a protagonist under Ra. Ra had converted her because what they did was they created a cult of Amun-Ra, and so they said, "Hey, we want to make Ra be the one true God. We have this whole pantheon," but the people were not ready to accept a monotheistic God. So they do what a lot of cultures did. They just painted it all over with, okay, this is really just one God, even though there's a bunch of different names. Let's just call it one God. And so they said Ra is the guy. And then they said, well, what are we going to do about Sekhmet? The temple of Sekhmet, which was, very powerful. We can't just dismiss the goddess. So they said, well, we're going to make her turn into a good guy. You know what? She's given over a new leaf. She decided to quit destroying everything and trying to kill us all with floods. She's a good guy now. And they made friends. And you're like, really? And so literally like overnight, it became another like whatever. But the temple of Set, which is literally what was left of the temple of Sekhmet, it fell into darkness. And when the Romans took it over, they were very okay with everybody having their own beliefs. Like they respected the Jewish Passover. They respected all the Arab beliefs and whatever. But if your religion became a problem, then guess what? They're going to put a boot in your butt, and they didn't care. So what ended up happening is the Romans took over Egypt, and at that time Alexandria was the capital, and they began to have problems. And the grain supply, which fed most of Rome, had gotten so dependent on it coming from Syria and from Egypt that they were like, we're not going to risk our food supply because these people want to have a cult. So the leaders, which would have been at that time the Ptolemies, the descendants of Alexander, because that was his brother, that was his illegitimate half brother. The Ptolemy dynasty had taken over Egypt, and so Julius Caesar literally went there, and that's how he met Cleopatra. And Cleopatra was like, "Look, I have a problem. There's this cult." And that was one of the first things he did, was go in and try to behead this cult, take out their leaders, because they were killing children. And that was one of the things they were doing. Another thing that happened was in Syria, Lebanon, and what is modern day Israel, there was another cult that was going on, and it was the worship of a god known as Baal. Now, Baal, and he's closely associated with Moloch. Now, there's 2-3 different versions, and people will always say, well, that's not correct. Well, that's because we have different versions, just like the Key Solomon, the Song of Solomon, and the Lesser Key of Solomon. They all have a different story. Solomon got this ring. It was Orneus, the vampiric, jinn, deity, entity, whatever you want to call him, who caused the downfall of the demons, or jinn, whatever you want to call them. And they ended up becoming imprisoned by Solomon, and he forced them to build the temple. Now, here's what ends up happening. You have different versions of that story of how the evil one, Asmodeus or Asmodeus, tricks him when he gets drunk into throwing that ring. Talk about missing time. He ends up on the shores of a foreign land for 7 years, and he becomes basically like a cook because he gets thrown in jail because there's this guy speaking gibberish, and they're like, we don't know who this guy is. And if somebody shows up on your shore, they're like, why are you here? And you don't understand our language. So they throw him in jail. But God, he keeps his faith in God, and God gives him the ability to understand them. And eventually he becomes like a cook for this king. He catches the eye because he was a good looking guy. He catches the eye of his daughter. And eventually, he gets back in trouble with the king, but then she helps him escape. And next thing you know, he's back on the shores of Israel, and he can't tell him anything. Why he's like only gone for several hours, but he was literally gone for 7 years. And he tried to tell them this wild story, and they were like, well, that sounds interesting, but where's the damn ring at? Because these demons are leaving. They're escaping, And so he literally just went to the ocean, and he swam, and he picked the ring up. He found it, and he said, yeah, this demon tricked me. But, he's escaped now. He's gone. But get this. This is really weird. This is where it really comes home for me. Set was a donkey-headed deity. Right? Asmodeus was a donkey-headed deity. Very, very weird. And when you look at the name of Yaldabaoth, which is the supposed name of the God of the Hebrews, not Israel, because that was Yahweh, but a lot of people say that that's the same thing. And this is where I get in trouble with people that don't want to hear what I have to say. You don't have to believe it. And I'm not saying I believe it myself because I don't know. But this is what people say. That was the deity because his job was to lure you into the desert, and guess what? You get lost. That's what the Fae do. You get lost in the woods or the desert if they're the Jinn. They're in the desert. So a lot of people, the Gnostics, the first Christians believed that deity, that entity was Set under the name of Yaldabaoth, and that he had led them into the desert to get lost. That was the whole point. And a lot of them did worship what the Egyptians believed was the bad guy. They believed that. And that's another reason why the word Hebron meant like outlaw or lawless one, or it was it was a negative thing to be a Hebron. Now, a lot of people explain it away by saying, well, it's because they were immigrants and they took over, and so the Egyptians turned them into slaves because they couldn't control them, but they needed them to work and blah, blah, blah. And then the Egyptian patrician class didn't want to work, so they made them slaves, whatever. But that is the truth, that a lot of them did serve this deity, which was connected to this donkey-headed being. Now, people say that when a donkey brays, we talked about this, Matt, in the Lebanese belief, that when a donkey, it's an Arab belief too. Like when the donkey brays, it's because they're seeing a jinn or a demon. They're basically an alarm system saying that that's what that is, that they can see it, and people will put them in their pastures with other hoofed animals because they are like an early warning system. So
I did not hear
that. And the story that I had gotten about a werewolf type creature from Lebanon, it was called the Kutra. So whenever this creature attacked them, they heard the donkey braying and they knew to go out there because this donkey was supposedly kind of like not a holy creature, but yeah, it had a significance in their culture because Mary, when she was pregnant with Jesus, she rode on a donkey. Jesus rode on a donkey. So it was a significant thing in their culture. Donkeys were revered, right? But it goes back to the donkey's not necessarily a good guy because this being Set, which, the female version being Sekhmet, was a donkey. And now, like I'm saying here, I'm not saying this is what I believe or what I don't believe. I'm just saying this is the connection there. And when Julius Caesar, when he went to Alexandria, and then later Mark Antony, one of his colleagues and one of his generals, tried to go and quell the rebellion, he told him, he said, the problem he told Augustus, because Julius was dead at that time, they had murdered him, Brutus and the whole betrayal. He said, there's a problem here. There's a cult. Just like in Judea, there's a problem over there too. They're worshiping this demon. And a lot of people will say, well, they were worshiping God. Well, the Romans looked at their God as not a good thing. And Egyptians did too. The Egyptians, that was the bad guy. So the Romans, a lot of them really believed that Judeans were worshiping Saturn. I mean, which was like, why are you worshiping the god of the underworld? You're not supposed to be doing that, because of them wanting to commit blood sacrifice all the time. And even the Egyptians, when they painted the blood on the door, there's stories there too that Napoleon found about these things, and they were hidden away by the Vatican. And I'll tell you, because if those stories got out, it would totally turn everything on its ear, because people don't want to hear that what they've been brought up believing is not necessarily correct. And then that creates problems. And then guess what? These people act like a damn cult, and then they get upset and they're mad because what they've been brought up to believe may not be the case. And so the Egyptians were like, what kind of people do these things, And even, the Vikings, they believed that the Christians were bad because they worshiped a man that was hung up on a stick, as they claimed, right? So, but as a Christian, that's not necessarily, that's just how they observed it. They observed it through a warped eye. But the Romans were right there with them. The Vikings were different. Now, this is where I brought it up, because somebody tried to argue with me. Well, the Vikings believed that they worshiped Jesus and it was on a stick, whatever. I said, yeah, but the Vikings were raiders. They came and they went. They came and they went. They came and they went. And Rollo eventually, he settled in, he was given a piece of land, which became Normandy, and he ended up settling and taking a part of France, which to this day, it's the Viking descended people, and they became the Huguenots and all these other things. And then Brittany eventually took part of it. But it was different. The Romans were there. They were there. And in Masada, when they killed the people at Masada, Titus and his dad, or Titus and his son, they believed that they were doing the right thing, because these people were bloodthirsty, and they committed animal sacrifice all the time, and it was weird, and they looked at them as a weird cult within a region full of cults. And so they stamp it out, and then they try to, and then when the Christians came up, they were like, here's another one from this desert people. We got to stamp it out. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, great guy with a lot, but he killed Christians because he believed that they were just another problem, like the Judeans or the Egyptians. You go, here are these desert people always causing problems. They always got these cults. They're always killing people. And so that was the same. They looked at them as the same way, like the Temple of Set. That was a big problem. The Romans had to go into these underground tunnels and destroy these cultists. And it was at the behest of the Egyptian officials. They were like, look, we can't get these people under control. There's so much unrest now that they may overthrow us. This is a problem. And if they get a hold of the grain supply, the Romans were like, that can't happen. That cannot happen. So they went there and they put a boot on them. But they were shocked and appalled at the bloodlust of these entities from the Levant and North Africa. When you go back, the Romans had already dealt with this before. Carthage, which is in Tunisia, but not just Tunisia. They controlled that whole area of Northern Africa. And there are lots and lots of temples who were dedicated to these bloodthirsty gods, all the way from Tunisia to Morocco, through Libya, Algeria, that whole region, and the Romans were like, these people are evil because they were sacrificing their children. So, whether you like the Romans or you don't, the Romans were not about children sacrifice. So they were like, dude, these people need to be destroyed. And that was the big thing when Scipio Africanus, when he fought, when he defeated at Zama, when he defeated Hannibal, it was said that one of the things he did was, before the battle or whatever, he bathed in bull's blood, and he said, may this be the blood that saves the children. And it sounds crazy because you got one pagan bathing in bull's blood and another one. But I mean, it's kind of like, which is the lesser of two evils? You know what I mean? And so the children sacrificing that the Carthaginians did was very bad. Now, I'm a big fan of Hannibal. I think he was one of the greatest generals that ever lived. He would have been a North African. He was an Arab, basically, but not an Arab. He was a Berber people. And but of course, you know, you look at these cults, and they go back a long ways. And everybody wants to say, well, this one particular people here were good guys, and then all these other particular people were bad guys. No, they were all pretty much Canaanites, and they were all doing it. It's just that one group is the group that where Jesus was born of, and so that makes them special according to the rules of Christianity. But I think a lot of people don't want to look at the truth. They don't want to read the Old Testament for what it really is. And then they want to be cultish with it, you know, and it's like, that's what led to all this crap in the first place, you know? So that's my take on it. I don't want to stand on my soapbox too long. I got 3 guys here that need to talk, but what are your thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Nick. What do you think? I know it's a lot to unwrap.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think I'm going to bring it back. I mean, I'm always going to bring it back to the Fae. It doesn't matter. I definitely think these ancient gods you're talking about, they're all Fae beings. I mean,
yeah, pretty much. I can agree with that.
When people think of the Fae, they think of like little things, right? Like leprechauns and stuff like that. But you know, there's when you think there's the Tuatha Dé, like I mentioned them earlier, they were godlike immortal beings who came from the other world to Ireland. You know, they waged war against the Fomorians. Who's to say these other gods all around the world aren't, you know, they're even the same beings. Maybe all these different mythologies, Egyptian, Greek, Norse, you know, maybe they're all the same beings taking on a different shape, different form, different name. I guess that's, you know, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, and that is probably the case, because that's just another name for to me for a demon, you know. But it's not as cut and dry as you would think it is, because if you go and you read the Quran, you know, and certain books of the Bible that been taken out, they'll tell you that these demons, that's not all that's there. There's these other beings, and they call them their neighbors, which is really weird, because then you're sitting there going like, what the hell? So we're not just dealing with demons, but then they have neighbors, like, you know, which I believe are the subnature. That's what they call it. The gnomes, the duende, whatever, these little beings, these monitos that we talk about. Tuesday, we were talking about Tuesday's show, Anthony. We were going to do elves of the underworld, because there is an entire thing to be unwrapped there, starting with a cave in Iceland where, get this, these elves, people see these elves, but they also see Dogman at the entrances of these caves. And I've talked about this years ago when I was on another show that I used to do to work with, and I got lambasted for it. And of course, he wanted his show to be about physical Dogman, whatever. And I said, well, that's not where this is not where the evidence is taking me. I need to be able to say what I believe is the truth. But these cave elves, oftentimes you'll see these like elf-like beings involved with other types of phenomena, in particular like wolves, ravens, all kinds of weird stuff, and they can shapeshift, you know. And I think that they take on the image of these things, but I also think that somewhere down the line there was a physical manifestation of these creatures that came along, and what they did was they and they're doing it now, I believe. They bred them, they created them, they turned them into like, and I think it started with Tiamat. I think that she was the one that did it, and it was a Mesopotamian deity. There was, you know, there was a war, and she was like the leader. She had scientists that worked for her. I think it was a physical thing, and they told them, make an army of some stuff. You have the ability, and you know, if our military had the ability, they'd be making them too, which people say they are.
And they already are.
Yeah. So it's like people are
connected to the Anunnaki, right?
Yeah, the Anunnaki, or whatever you want to call them. There's different names, but it's beings that were here from a long time ago, and they basically were tampering, genetic tampering. Once again, the Fae, yeah, and that, just call them that. I mean, but that's what it is, you know. And somebody had said the donkey thing came out of left field. No, it didn't. No, it didn't at all. Go and look at that. Go look at these donkey-headed beings. I mean, that is what I mean. They're very similar. Set being the most prominent and the one that people, you know, when you talk about them. But that's not the only one. There's been several of these beings that look that way. Horse-headed, donkey-headed. The Kabbalah, which is a book of Jewish mysticism, and I don't practice mysticism, and I don't, you know, but these elites, a lot of them adhere to this book. They use it. But it talks about the demons that we know of as demons here, that they are fragmented beings, and it explains why that they look like different types of animals and whatever they took these, because these were like giants, these beings, right? The Nephilim, they were crushed. The Denisovian people, I think, would be the probably the culprits, you know. And they find their bones, they find teeth and all kinds of stuff, but they're huge, they're giants. And like, how could this be that these bones were from people that were probably 15 to 20 foot tall, maybe even 30 foot tall, whatever? And then but the Kabbalah says that they were compressed, and I think that they were compressed and crushed by water. Because I think when the flood happened, that was the end of them, and they come from another world. But another world could also mean another time period. It could be another world as in another period of time that was, and literally the world was totally different back then than it is now. Like it says in Genesis 6, and Genesis 6 does say that there were giants in the earth in those days and even after. Okay. Yep. So, you know, and then you get these people that were living within the earth. It talks about, you know, those will be judged upon and within the earth. Who's living within the earth? Obviously somebody's there. Mm-hmm. So when you look at this objectively and you read hundreds of books, which I have, and people, and I'm not bragging, I'm saying this is what you need to do. People say, well, why are your theories this, and that? I was like, because I've read it. And I've looked at several different opposing theories. And there's a lot of contradiction in every holy book. I'm telling you, it's like they'll say this and then they'll say that. That's because you took a bunch of different books and you put them all together. And when you take them apart and you go separately and then you put them in the correct order of a timeline, then you'll start to see, because they're not even timeline correct. That's the problem. And that's for all of these holy books. And I've argued with people over and over again, whether they were Christian, Buddhist, Jewish, Muslim. And some people are just like, they're going to take it at literal face value, no matter what happens. And you can't convince them, and they will go after you because they don't like what you're saying. But just because they say that it's not true, they can scream until their eyes bleed, doesn't make it not true. It is what it is. And these beings, I believe, they have a beginning. And there's an origin to each one of them. And who knows if we're dealing with multiple layers of different types of beings from multiple ages, going way back to antiquity. There are beings that were here within the earth, and then other beings came within the earth, and then other beings, and they just keep coming, and they come from different dimensions, different worlds, different whatever you want to call it. And so who's to say that there is not this layer upon layer of this? I mean, so far back that you don't even know. And so when you go to this compressed universe, whatever, that's actually the way they interpret it. These beings that were compressed, who's to say that that's not what we're dealing with? And that's just a theory. I'm not saying I believe all this. That's where a lot of people get cross with me, because they think that I'm set in stone, that this is my belief. Don't get it twisted. This is just something that I've observed. And when you put the threads together and you look at these beings, I've always wondered why there were certain beings that were so prominent. The wolf, why has that animal come up over and over again? But get this, I've never once got a report of a tiger man. One of my jewelers, he's from India. One of them is from Pakistan, one's from India. Two different places, not the same thing, not the same religion. Believe me, they don't agree on religion. They're very close friends, but they don't agree on religion. And then there's another one who's a Christian, and they all work together. They get along fine. They don't have the same belief. One of them is going through Ramadan right now, and the other one kind of tease him, they're like, you can't eat. They'll eat in front of him. I was there the other day, and they were teasing him.
That's dirty.
Yeah, but Max is a good dude, and he's just like, whatever, dude. And so his place is called Jewel City. He does really good work. I'll give you an example. He made this for me. So he does really, really good work.
Oh, that's nice.
Jewel City, yeah. And I also want to give a shout out to the people at Thorndale Meat Market today for always doing such a good job of getting our food together. But Trey Felton's place, very good guy. He's a Christian. He's been preaching part-time now, San Gabriel Church, good guy. But there were two people in there that were interested in the show, Bobby and Skyly. So hi, shout out to you guys. It was nice to meet you today. It was a pleasure. But here's the thing. When you go back and you look at all these different threads, which I've been doing since the inception of this show, you pull the thread, and I have to take it wherever it leads me. And I can't ignore stuff. Now, there are people who are very angry with me right now, and I'm not going to apologize. But I get why they're angry, but they're totally off base, because if I ignore those threads, then I'm doing everyone a disservice, and I'm hiding and I'm lying. If I do that, I'm lying. And there are organizations, very large groups. I'm not going to say their names because they're very large and they're bigger than the audience I have on this show. But they have a vested interest in keeping us ignorant. They really do, folks. And one of them is very large, and it's a UFO organization. One of them is a Bigfoot organization. And they don't tell the truth. I'm sorry. I'm telling you right now, they get reports and they don't do the right thing. This doesn't fit our narrative, and this ain't going to make us money. So, and that's what they do. You know why I know this? Because I got about 30 people in each of those groups that tell me that they were involved in doing that. That's right. So I'm not going to mention their names, like I said, but that's what they do. They lie. They totally lie, and they fabricate, and they'll, which is really the same thing. When you take something out and you don't tell the whole story, that's the same as telling a lie to me. So my detractors who have, they're upset, whatever. I get it. I understand why you're upset. But if I don't tell what I know, then that's the same as me lying. That's being deceptive because you're leaving out facts. Wouldn't you agree, Nick and Rye and Matt?
Of course.
I do.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. I believe that's the key, and not to set up on a soapbox, but I wanted to say that because I feel like there's a lot of people that are trying to censor each other in this field. And it's like, the only time I'm going to censor you is if you're talking mess and you're attacking me, or you're attacking my family or my people that are, on the show, or my listeners. Otherwise, you're free to do and say whatever you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, well, you can go to another show. And so people will go where they feel like they feel more comfortable. But here on this show, I will always tell you what I believe to be correct. And I'm doing you a disservice if I don't tell you about all these theories that are coming across my desk. Because if I just pick out one or two things and say, well, this is what I'm going to tell you, then I'm spoon feeding you my belief.
Yeah.
Right. I need to tell you the whole thing, the whole truth. And that's what I'm just telling you what I know to be correct. I think you're right, Nick. I do believe that these very well, you could say that they are all a form of the Fae. Now, Ron Murphy said on Blondes and Booze last night that you have the Sealy cord, the unsealy cord. We talked about that, the cloaked hedgehog. But there really is no Sealy. Sealy means clean. They really aren't clean at all because there's only like levels of bad. And the main reason is because it's bad to us, right? They don't like us because we were given dominion over them, and they don't like it. And there's one thing, and I'll say it again. The name of Christ folks, if it didn't work, I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah.
If it didn't work, I wouldn't tell you, man. I mean, I tell these people all the time, yes, King of Hecamundo, Christ is the only way. Because if you have an encounter with one of these things, you're okay. If you are saved, you got your heart right, I'm almost positive you'll be fine. But if you're not, then maybe you shouldn't be saying the name of Jesus, because some of these people say, well, it didn't work for me. Yeah, well, where is your heart at? Did you really believe it?
Do you believe?
Or it's like having a gun without bullets. What is the point?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Rye? Go ahead.
Well, we were saying this, Faye, and the more you were talking about things, the more I was kind of falling into possibly, associated with the Nephilim. I really believe, like we're talking fallen angels and Nephilim, it all seems to be tied together. These creatures and these creatures that have been created, that's what the fallen angels did as well, is they worked on genetics, combining human with other beings as well, other animals. So it's always a possibility that, and you're saying, Genesis 6, we fall into that with giants. Well, as far as I'm concerned, giants are Nephilim. Mm-hmm. So I think it's connected in that sense too, and how is the Fae connected with it? Well, you could be very right that, maybe they were here first and it was kind of like working alongside, or what kind of connection is there between them? It just adds so many more questions as usual.
One of the things, and Matt, you and I have had a couple conversations in the last few days. We've had several conversations because me and Matt have been working together on some stuff. But when you stop and you look at, like, okay, you take somebody like me, for example, my mother is Hispanic, my dad's is Caucasian. Like you, Matt, you're Lebanese and you're Caucasian. I guess I said it Caucasian. Doesn't sound, you're Caucasian. You're Caucasoid. My friend. Okay,
you're white.
You're white. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah.
But what I'm saying though is, like, we come from multiracial background, and when you stop and you look at, like, okay, my hometown, we call the Dog Man. Nobody calls it a Dog Man. You can't find one person in that town, in the entire region, that calls it a Dog Man. If I went to them and I said, "Yeah, I'm here to talk about your Dog Man," they're going to look at me and go, "Boy, what the hell are you talking about? What is a dog boy?" And actually had a guy told me and Anthony that he was outside the feed store, and it was my friend Theo, and we started talking, and he said, "You still working on the dog boy?" I said, he knows because he's black, but he talks like that, right? And he says, the haint. Now, his granny and his auntie always said that it was called the haint. And I remember going out to his farm when I was a kid, and we'd be out there looking for crawdads and whatever, and they called it the haint. And they said, "Beware of the haint out there." It'll get you.
With some of my African American friends I grew up with, I heard them say that as well.
Mm-hmm. And the white people just said it's a werewolf.
Yeah.
And the Mexican people called it taquerejo or the amarelobo. And that's what they would say. And nobody was calling it a dog man. That was a northern term. Mm-hmm. So
I agree. Yeah. Nobody called that. When I and my friends talked about what happened to me when we were all 14 and I had my dog man experience, none of us for a year. It was a werewolf. That's all we called it for a year. So got worried about you there, Rye. Disappeared for a second.
No, yeah. I got a couple of problems. It seems a couple of issues with my computer. So
welcome to the club.
Yeah, it's the Fae.
It's the machine elves.
Actually, unfortunately, I seem to have an ant problem on my computer. That's
wow.
Yeah. Welcome to Mexico. Just full of ants everywhere. I had some peanuts the other day. I was eating some peanuts, and I had touched my computer, and just the oil from that has caused this. So I hope they're not messing up my computer. So yeah, shout out to ants.
Shout out to the ants.
Hey, so I had a little real quick. I wanted to ask you guys. It's a little trivia question. Hold on one sec. As I wanted to ask you guys, it is. Hold on one second.
No problem.
Of course, yeah. As soon as I went to do it,
I will go with false. I will go with E. All the above. Yeah.
Do any of you know what Sekhmet means? The name?
No.
Nope.
Maybe Josh. Josh has this photographic memory.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Hold on one second. I'm typing something.
No problem. I don't know what Sekhmet means. What, Matt? Do tell us.
It means strength and power is one of the most known definitions of her.
Wow.
And again, a female that, again, it's not me saying this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and I'm sure I'll get some, of maybe even my relatives that yell at me that are females, or it really is, I've noticed growing up, again, more of a male dominated, just the Lebanese side of anybody who doesn't know, I'm half German, Irish, half Lebanese. My mom was 100% Lebanese. Growing up, very just male dominated on the Lebanese side, so much so. The older generation, I know they're going to be people that don't like. I had nothing to do with this. I was a kid.
Well,
but
that's the way it was, though,
more,
right?
yeah, the more, when I was a little kid, it was more of that mindset of the old one of women, seen, not heard. The men in the Lebanese was his dad who spoke, and do I agree with that? No, but that's just how it was. So when you hear in that type of definition, that's a big deal in the Lebanese to have, even in the supernatural, that, her name is just synonymous with extreme power and strength and all that. So I don't know. I find that interesting.
Sorry about that, folks. I was talking to someone. If anybody's out there listening, I got a friend. I'm not going to say his problems or anything like that, but it's just his name is Mike. If you could just say a prayer for him, he's not in a good place. Just say a prayer for him. It's just
Of course.
sorry about that. Sometimes it puts things in perspective. I mean, it's a. Well, I'm sorry. What was I wouldn't. I cannot even. What was the question that you were asking about?
It asks, do you know what Sekhmet's name means?
It means evil witch lady. I don't know. What does it mean? It's like, what does it mean? Like,
It means that she doesn't float.
well,
and
I
you should
know
burn
that
her.
it used to be like the Stormbringer. She was a bad one because she flooded the Nile. But then they changed it because she was they didn't want her to make because they wanted to appease this small sect of a cult that was violent. So this appeasement became, oh, she's actually a good guy. No, because the people that were worshiping her were doing it because they wanted the power. Who I believe that Sekhmet was Lilith. That's my opinion. I got into it with an Egyptian friend of mine. He was my neighbor years ago when I was living in a haunted house, and we were talking about Lilith, and he goes, "No, that's Hebrew." And I said, "Yeah, but it's the same guy or same person. Just different names for these beings. They just transform their names.
Yeah.
You can be Prince or you can be a symbol."
Or you can be formerly known as Prince.
Yeah, I'm the goddess formerly known as Witch Lady. Come on.
Yeah, I think
some of the, obviously you get beings of supernatural, power and things like that, and that's one of it. Power and strength is one of the many, characteristics that she's known for.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely that falls in it. Do you? I don't know if you guys, because I was late, if you guys had spoken already about physical characteristics of Sekhmet, like what her face looked like. Did anybody mention that?
No, we didn't get into that, but you're welcome to tell us. Before you do, though, remember, like what I was saying about how she caused all this darkness and chaos or whatever, the backstory that they used everybody to worship Amun-Ra was that he was so holy that he managed to convert her to be a good guy. And she was like, okay, it's just like that was that easy. And like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, but go ahead, explain that.
The head of Sekhmet is a lioness, so more of a lion. Nick, obviously, you're shaking your head. Yes, and also touching on, you speak of the connection of Ra and Set, and a lot of with Ra, sun, the sun. Well, if you look at some of the graphic illustrations of her, you will see that being with that face of a lioness and this like reddish disc in a lot of pictures, which is supposed to symbolize, the sun. And
Mm-hmm.
I always thought, it was kind of weird that it was red for whatever reason. Now, I'm sure there are reasons that maybe go deeper into why it was red. Ironically, we were talking, Rye, the other day, we were talking about the harp directed energy weapon.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I had brought up and Josh, maybe you remember this, when I was really young, when you would have been young too, there was a blood eclipse that had
Mhm.
occurred. And I will never forget it. I probably was somewhere between, I don't know, 8 and 10 or 11. Everything. I mean, you want to talk about red? You was like putting on a pair of red sunglasses. Everything was that. Do you remember that, Josh, from when you were
Yeah,
younger?
I believe I was in 6th grade when that happened.
Thank
Matt,
you.
I don't know how old you are, but I remember one was in. No, I was in
50.
6th. I was in 8th grade, I think.
So
Um,
I'm 50.
yeah,
So
how old are you?
I'm 50. I turned
Yeah,
50.
so I'm 40. I'm 48.
Okay, so yeah, I got you by 2 years. So yeah, that was we both. So then, thank you for reminding me when it was. And if you remember, everything was red. I'll never, and I've never seen another one. But that was incredible. I'll never forget it.
See, Inky, I guess funny his name. He calls himself Inky. Marduk is also Amun Ra. Now, that can be disputed, and I will argue that tomorrow. And I'm gonna show you who's boss, Inky. Watch what I do to you tomorrow. I'm gonna school you, dog. No, I'm just joking, Inky. That's what some people say, because there was this whole push. Marduk is a very interesting character because he's considered to be like a demon, but I think he was a real guy. Not that demons aren't real guys, but I mean a living flesh and blood guy. And supposedly he was the one in charge when the first, it was the second reptilian invasion took place. And like I've said before, I'm not a big believer in these things coming from like outer space. I'll go so far as to say outer space is not what we think it is. I'm sorry. It's just
I
my
agree.
belief.
I
Yeah,
agree 100%.
me and Martin were talking about that earlier. It's just like, yeah, I don't really believe that. I don't really. It's funny how people will get so twisted on your words. And when you're throwing out theories and stuff, I got to tell you, it's a theory. Now, one of the guys I was interviewing recently, he just flat out said the earth is flat. The verdict is still out on that. And I'm saying this because I don't think that the earth is a sphere, but I don't believe it's flat. Now, that's
Me
my opinion.
too.
But I think
Yeah.
that there is something to this. The round is, yeah, that's the round. But there could be this ice wall, like the vampire guy, Joel. I don't want to call you the vampire guy, Joel, if you're listening. I don't think he's listening, but I probably could talk crap about him. But he'll probably watch this later and be like, what'd you say about me? But he's not a vampire anymore, so he can't hurt me. He can't do anything, right? I can probably beat him up. What do you think? Probably beat him up, right? He's probably going to message me tomorrow. But he said that you can jump from world to world. It's kind of like the pond Earth theory. But he believes that there's an ice wall all the way around. He goes, Antarctica is not a continent. And he kind of blurted that out in the middle of a conversation. And I'm like, what? Like, I was like sitting there literally eating a sandwich. Shout out to Parmer Ln. They make really good sandwiches. But, I was eating a sandwich and he said, I go, what? Like, he goes, I could literally hear you disagreeing with me. I'm like, I'm eating. He goes, yeah, but you stopped. So I said, okay, well, Antarctica is not a continent. Then what is it? And he said, it's an ice wall. And I said, yeah, I've heard this before. Just like the thing with the Old Testament, like people think that I'm so 100% grounded in these theories. Dude, my views are fluid, because if they weren't, I could not get people, and why can't you have 100 different people with 100 different views? Because you don't have an echo chamber. I've been accused of that, and that is not the case. Matt, Rye, you guys, not you, Nick, but I've talked to y'all too a lot. Yeah. And that a lot of our friends don't have the same views.
Right.
They just don't. Yeah. And I accept that. But what's funny to me, one of my colleagues, she was telling me this a couple of days ago. She's like, all these people have all these different beliefs, but you're the one they always go after if you say anything. And the simple solution is just turn it off. Don't talk to me. Don't, and I won't mess with you. Don't mess with me. I just it's that simple. So I don't want to offend anybody. Just people in my chat is like, they want to believe what they want to believe. If you want to believe that the moon is hollow, some people believe that. They think that it's like a bell, that it's like a metal or something. They say it's rusting, I'm laughing. I'm not trying to be mean, but
it's got hematite. It's rust. It's actually rusting.
The people will get so upset with me, and they will message me, and they will just cuss me out, and then be like, "God bless." And I'm not joking. Like, you rotten piece of garbage.
Bless your heart.
God bless you. I'm gonna go be pious somewhere, and you're like, you literally just called me the F word about 4 or 5 times, and now you're telling me to God bless me, and I'm like, which God? Who is your God? Because I'm trying to find the true God. Yeah, maybe Sekhmet is your God. I don't know. But I look at these things and I go, and people said, well, you don't believe in Genesis. I never said that. I said that the creation is in question for me. Because I don't know. I don't. And I don't have 100%. And I am not a Zachariah Sitchin guy. Okay. Because I don't believe, and this is my opinion, I'll probably get attacked by these people for that. But the Sitchin people, and I used to work with one, he passed away. Armand, he was a good friend of mine. He was my first co-host. He was constantly talking about this dude. So me and Anthony read the books. Okay. And I think he's completely off base about a lot of it. I think that he kind of, like my friend, he gets absence seizures and he kind of pieces the world together in his head. That's what I kind of think that's what Sitchin did. I mean, it's like, he's like, oh, I'm onto something. Well, that doesn't fit. Let me just write some stuff in there. And then there's that. And you're going like, okay, well, that's not necessarily the translations. And now uniform tablets have been translated differently.
And those books, Zachariah Sitchin books, are probably one of the toughest reads I've ever had to. I made it through the first one, and I started in the second one, and I'm like, no, I can't go any further.
It's hard. It is hard to read. It is like, okay, I read the Greek War of Independence, and I thought, I'm getting settled down here. I'm one of those, I'm on, like, what do you call that? OCD. If I start a book, I have to finish it at some point. I cannot leave it undone, and I'm still trying to go back and read, refinish books. So I started reading it, and I was like, oh, the first 2 chapters, and I'm like, oh. Every time I was reading, I was falling asleep. And I love history, but it was so drawn out. I don't want to say the author's name and be rude, but the way he writes was like, I just needles in my head. And I said, I have to finish this, okay? Because it's the history of the Ottoman Empire, the Albanian people, and the establishment of the Albanian state, of course, the Greeks, and, I'm really interested in like names of history, like Skanderbeg. A lot of people don't know who that is, but if you know Albanians, that's their guy. So I had a doctor who, when I went to the hospital with super high blood pressure, we couldn't get it down. I won't take a lot of time on this, but I had an Albanian doctor. And when I told him, I said, you're a regular Skanderbeg. He knows that. He was like, oh my gosh, you know who that is? And I'm like, sure I do. And I said, are you from Albania, or did you live in Sicily, or were you Greek? He's like, I lived in Greek. And so that there are people that were kind of scattered, and they fought on both sides of that war, which was very interesting because a lot of people, Russians, Italians, every type of person you could imagine, the French, the British, they all came to the aid of the Greeks because it was the cradle of European civilization, and they were fighting the Islamic state of the Ottomans, which were big slavers. And to the British credit, at that time, the British were destroying anyone who was into slavery. And so that's probably, one of the things that they did that we owe them the credit for. They would destroy anyone in the sea that was known to be a slaver. And they even laid siege to Zanzibar, which was a big slave capital. At their own risk, the crown did this, and there was nothing to be gained by it at all. So that is, we owe the British that, at least. Now, I don't appreciate them, their empire, the colonialism and all that being what it is, but that at least they did not believe in slavery at that point in time. In the 1820s, they were like, no. But when you look at certain books like Sitchin's work, some of it you're going like, where did this guy come up with? I'm like, really, dude? Like, it just like he took the Sumerian, the ancient beliefs, and he kind of made his own little fictional Wonderland or something. You know, I'm not really be bagging on the guy, but that's kind of what it was. And so when somebody tells me, well, you're like into Sitchin or whatever, I'm like, not really. No, because I don't, you know, it's like saying that you agree more with one political party than the other. And they're like, oh, so you must be this. I'm like, no, because I still don't agree with, you know, almost half of what they say, you know, because I'm not a left or a right guy. I'm a moderate. And I believe that there's lunacy going on both sides. And so a lot of people will quote me and try to incorporate me into their belief, because I've said things. I'm a gun owner, right? But I also think that there needs to be some serious, you know, like I don't think you should be 18 years old and be allowed to go get one. I'm sorry. And now I did it as a kid, and luckily my mind was not effed up, you know, but an 18-year-old, what business do they have doing that? I also don't believe that 16-year-olds should be allowed to drive, because this is all a matter of common sense. Which is just common sense.
My daughter's 16, and I do not want her.
When Anthony was 16, he nearly killed me. His mother was real busy. She was working all the time. My sister, bless her heart, she's one of my older sisters, and she's like, you know, I don't have time to take him to go drive or whatever. And I was like, I don't know about this kid driving, right? And so I took him out to drive, and it was like, where are you going? That's not a road. What are you doing? You know, and it was like, I can't. And then Tony was the worst.
Oh, yeah.
He wrecked
Still is.
4 cars. 4 cars. He totaled them. And then he took his Crown Vic, so he upgraded. You got what was it you got?
I got the Chevy, the Silverado.
Silverado. He got a Chevy Silverado. My old truck, which was a nice truck, really good truck.
Yeah, I like that truck.
He beat the crap out of it, destroyed it, and then just whooped its ass. I mean, bad. And then Tony comes along, and he takes the Crown Vic, and at the same time, they were just beating the crap out of these cars. Crown Vic, you think this thing was bulletproof, indestructible. The engine seizes up on it, and my mechanic, he's like, that thing's useless. Go put it on the railroad tracks. You want a new engine? Yeah, you know, like here's $6,000. I was like, no, it's worth more than the car. You know, I was like. So Tony's like, oh, you know, I didn't put oil in it. I'm like, what? What is wrong with you? And then his mother,
you're gonna say,
she's like, you're so stupid. You're so stupid. Why you do that? You know, because he destroyed a car that she bought him. And what was it? He was driving home.
Yeah.
And then he said, next thing you know, I was flying through the like Shaquille O'Neal. I was flying through the air. I said, dude, you were flying through the air because you went to sleep. You know, and oddly enough, he was on camera sleeping that night at the job sites. I don't know what he was doing in the morning. He was still tired, I guess. I don't know. But it taught him a lesson. If he's tired, take a nap before you come home. So here's what happens. This dude gets my truck, and nice truck, right? And this is why young people suck. Okay, I'm sorry. We're young. It was a pain in the ass. And if you interviewed the truck would have been like, yeah. I put up a good fight. It was hard though, man. That kid's tough. I mean, every time I thought I had him, he just, you know, he'd punch the gas and we'd hit a fence or a wall. And eventually I just had to say, this kid's too tough. I just couldn't take it no more. So
we can't risk a frontal assault.
This kid is just,
this kid's dynamite.
Eventually my engine did fall out and I just gave up. I'm you know, I guess I'm going to retire after this, folks. Sorry, man. The Vortec engine's badass, but it can't stop at Anthony. Sorry. You know, and they're like, well, there you have it, folks. The fight was a brutal one, but Anthony beat the shit out of him.
Well, okay, like the body of my truck was messed up, but mechanically it ran perfectly.
The body messed up. That was after you messed it up?
No.
What year was it?
It was in 2009.
Yeah.
I had GMC Sierras for years. I was leasing, and the same engine, Vortec. And so just, you know, on Josh's side, and I love you, Anthony, but those are really badass trucks and hard to mess up. Man, he did four vehicles.
No. That's Tony.
Tony did that.
Tony did that.
Okay.
No, like the worst I did was some body damage.
Screaming in my ear because you're trying to defend your lives.
Okay. Anyway, the worst I did was like some body damage to the Silverado, but I never totaled the vehicle that I had.
I'm sorry, I confused you with Tony.
Both of them destroying the interior too. Like I got in the inside of which one was it? The Crown Vic.
Yeah.
I got in there and there was like sticky like what a kid would have, like a sucker, and then Tony's like, oh, that's like a one of those, what's it called? Not the pots. What is it? The not the CBD. What is it called? Like the edible or whatever. And he goes, that's an edible sucker. I was like, and so you left it half eaten on the seat? Like, what is this? Dude?
Why he did
For
it.
later. For
You know,
later.
late, yeah.
He didn't realize he did it. He was like,
Yeah, he was
Shit,
too busy.
that's where it is. That's where it went.
Destroyed the car, and his mom was yelling at him about that car, and then we got him another one. And he would just beat their ass. What was that? The Ford Edge, the Ford Escape.
Yeah, the Escape.
We had a Ford Escape that only had 55,000 miles on it. My friend Arash, he's the guy that saw the dog. He's in my book, and he's a good friend of mine. He owns Spinners. We get him a Ford Escape, and man, he proceeds to start whooping that thing's ass. He broke the axle on the second week.
Yeah, and then I think he ended up like trying to fix it himself and like just kind of jerry rigging it and then made it worse or something.
did he wrap duct tape around it?
Probably duct tape, bubble gum, paper clips.
Zip tie. You got to throw in some zip ties in there.
And then his excuse,
Yeah,
like, what happened? What made you break the axle? The Fae did it. Sorry. He's like, Nick told me the Fae were in charge of that day. They just destroyed it. Sorry.
It was the Darrow.
It's a good go-to.
What was that?
He said it's a good go-to excuse.
It's an
Yeah.
excuse for everything
Yeah.
now. Yeah, but here at PRT, we're not going to blame one group for all the world's problems. Nick and me are just saying that it's not really the Darrow, but it's the Darrow. Okay. Yeah. So Nick, what got you interested in the Fae theory, Nick? What made you? Because you seem like it'd be real big on that. What got you?
Expanded perspectives.
My
great
friends,
show.
My good friends of mine. Cam
I've
and
been
Kyle.
listening. Yeah, I've been listening to them since like 2015. I don't even know, years and years now. And they're always talking about them. And then I started, I've always been into weird stuff since, I don't even know, really little, right? Before the internet was even a thing. And then they're always talking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably check into this. And then I was like, it makes sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah, those guys have a great show. I used to listen to their show all the time. They were at my conference. Matt, did you meet Cam and Kyle from Expanded Perspective?
I did. Yeah, I remember meeting everybody at least, for a short period of time. I met everyone. Some obviously longer than others, but I do remember. Yeah.
Yeah, those guys are really good guys, man. I like those guys a lot. Rye, have you met those guys?
I have not. No.
You know what you should do? I mean, Matt, have you been on their show? You need to tell your story on their show. They got a whole different audience because they're a podcast. They do YouTube too, but their main thing is podcasting.
Okay.
I would love to.
Yeah, because like Merkel, he's another one. Have you been on Merkel's show?
Yeah, actually, he was. I did his, I think, right before I did yours. Or I did his right after yours. You two were like, it was either him before you or you before him.
Yeah, because me and Merkel recorded together, and it was
He's
so
a good
weird.
dude.
He's a real good dude, and it was
weird.
crazy what happened. Like it was like the first we did an hour together, and he goes, "Dude, it didn't record. The sound was not there, so I had to redo the whole thing." And he was like, afterwards, he was like, "You have an amazing, like you just retold it once again." And I told him, I said, I got it up there. I can just, I'll retell it exactly because we were talking about different stuff. And he's a fun guy to talk to. You get to talk to him, and he's really smart. He's very driven. He's very driven.
He is.
He's
one of
been
the
doing some great work lately too, man. Those guys, I'm really honored to know so many amazing people in this field. Because
I think Wes is a good guy too.
Never met Wes. I've heard good things about him. I've never met him. I just know a few people don't like him, but that doesn't mean that he's not a good guy. That just means people don't like him.
Great.
People don't like me. I don't care.
He treated me great. Merkel treated me. In fact, Tony gave me good advice. I'm like, it was before I had my channel, and I said, hey, I had some questions I'm thinking about. Because he said, are you going to do one? And I said, I'm thinking about it. He says, do one, man. And he still owes me an interview. He said, when you have your own channel, he said, hit me up and I'll do one. But I asked him about how do you deal with all of these people, the people in the comments. And then he said, you want my honest opinion? He said, I don't look at them anymore. He said, my wife takes care of the comments, because if I got one bad one out of 100, he said, dude, I would be wrecked for weeks. I would be just so upset about it. And then I was like, okay, but I understand what he's talking about. I try and do all of mine myself. I'd probably do 85% of them. But God bless my wife. She helped me do the rest.
Jeez.
I'm too tempted to, like, when I see a stupid comment, I'm too tempted to say something stupid. Like, dude, like
That's why I gotta delete him when I see him, because I know Wolf's gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna say something to this dude. It's like, oh,
but it's not for me. It's not like I'm not like going, no, I'm gonna get this guy. I just like to talk mess. I mean, I just like, I'm a big Muhammad Ali guy. You walk the walk, talk the talk. But if you're gonna talk it, I believe like this. If you talk it, a lot of times you'll talk yourself into a corner where you have to fight. And I believe this. And Muhammad Ali, one of the things he said in an interview one time, he was talking about how he goes, I have to back up what I say. And that gives you the chance to do that. Hernan Cortez, I know a lot of people don't like him, but he destroyed the Aztec Empire. He burned the ships because the governor sent a letter saying, get your butt back over here so you can face trial. So he told his lieutenants, go burn the ships. He's like, that way we can't go back. We have nowhere to go but to our goal. And that's how I am. I'm very much a burn the ships guy. We're going to face the enemy. We're not going to run, because if you do, you're just going to get a spear in your back. That's what's going to happen. You're going to die tired running. So why run? Because your enemy's not going to stop. They're not going to quit coming. So you have to face them.
There have been some that my wife was like, it's just, Matt, just get rid of it. And I'm like, no. There's some, I agree with you, that you just have to do it. And I try and the ones that I've really gotten angry with, I did my best to stay as professional as I could. The fun thing is, and the good thing is what I love, what happens if somebody is extremely rude or ignorant, is when my extended 412 family will step up, and I don't have to say a word, and they just destroy them. And I appreciate when my friends and family step in and do that.
And I think it's important to remember, Matt, that ultimately it's your show that you are putting out there free of charge, and if I mean, like, if you want to engage with your audience and accept polite criticism, that's one thing, but whenever people start trying to dictate to you like where your show should go to please them, then just remind them, like, look, my time is valuable and I'm giving it to you to create this show. So if you don't like it, you don't have to watch, but you don't dictate the content, because everyone else wants to hear this information. So please be quiet so the rest of the class can learn.
Yeah, because what's going on?
Josh, what happened with you on my show? Somebody said something, remember, and they were like, well, I don't even sub to Matt, and I said, well, then get the hell out of my channel.
You basically outed yourself. You played yourself. Nobody cares, with the negative comments, whatever. But I used to have fun, like sitting there talking with him or whatever. And then I think Barton put it best. He said that I wasted 4 days arguing. It's like, arguing with somebody on Facebook. Barton told me that. He goes, dude, and at the end, what did I accomplish? I just argued with a bunch of people in a stupid group. Yeah, I mean, that's what ends up happening. And then they're going to come after you. They're not going to stop. And they're going to keep politicking and going against you. But you got to think of it like this. For every one person you're losing, you're gaining a lot more. And I'm going to show something to somebody here. I'll show you. This is, you think you're slowing me down or you're stopping me. This is the truth right here. I'll just show you right there. Do you see that the numbers? 2.2 thousand subscribers every 28 days. boo-hoo, you don't like me, but well, too bad, because guess what? Poopakaka Head's doing really good, isn't he? That, you know, and they're going to go, well, darn it, we got to do more. We got to get, come on now, deliverance, whatever. Be angry, okay? You should be, because, you know, you're not stopping me. You're not doing good enough.
Yep.
This is my guy. He took all the Jedi's sabers. Look at all the sabers of the guys who came before you.
Grievous.
There it is. I like Grievous.
Matt,
He was killed by a blaster bolt, so
I do like him too.
Yeah.
Hey, anybody can be killed by anything. It's just before he did that, though, he took a lot of trophies, you know?
Yeah,
the
he
guy who
did.
killed him isn't Grievous. He's just the guy who killed Grievous.
You're just the guy who killed Grievous.
He doesn't have his legacy.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the gold on my hand here, it's from people's jewelry. They used to come into the club and be like, you know, yeah, I'm a hard dude. I did all this crap, and I don't give a crap. And I choked this guy. I don't care how many people you rolled around with. Okay, that means nothing to me. I like your jewelry, and when I'm done beating you, it becomes a mugging. So there it goes. Now I'm wearing it. So that's it. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, you know, and people always say, "Oh, you like to talk about fighting, whatever." It's because something I know. That is something I know. Now, granted, I'm 48 years old, but I will say this: just because you're old, I mean, you can't do it. And I hope Mike Tyson knocks the crap out of Jake Paul.
Me too. Hell yeah.
Please
Josh.
do us a favor and knock out that disrespectful punk.
Destroyed him. Did
I
you
grew up
see
a
him?
Tyson
Though?
fan.
Did you see him training? He looks good.
Yeah, he looks
looks
good. The only thing is that your punch is the last thing to go. Bernard Hopkins was in an article I was reading. I have this fight thing I subscribe to, and he was talking. He was saying, you know, that the punch is the last thing to go. He said if Mike hits him right,
he's out.
Jake Paul is not. He got hit by Tyson Fury's younger brother.
He's
Tyson
never
Fury,
been hit by
that's my younger
somebody.
brother. He goes, but the guy I'm named after is a different story.
Yeah. He's never been hit by a champ.
Let this guy hit him, and if Tyson could just hit him really good,
Tweet.
just be great.
Tweet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm so sick of this guy. And then, you know, the arrogance and the disrespect from a 20-something-year-old guy. I always say this: when you're in your 20s, just be happy you look good and keep your mouth shut, because you got nothing to say. And if you do, nobody's going to respect you until you hit 30. So just,
you know, here's my take on it. I always learned playing ball, and I was taught by coaches from way even before I got to college. Don't give people corkboard material, and what that means is for the younger crew, don't give them something like newspaper clippings to stick up on the wall in the gym or in the weight room, so that they can look and as they're working out, they're fired up even more so because this cat talked mess about me, saying I ain't nothing. I'm gonna knock that old man out. What have you accomplished, Jake Paul?
Yeah.
What have it? I mean, come on.
getting paid. I mean, he's gotten paid because he's set
He's
up.
also ripped off thousands of people of their hard-earned money.
Oh yeah, with that drink, with his energy drink,
Thousands of
and
people.
energy drink, and also cryptocurrency.
Yeah, crypto. He ripped off like a lot. I'm talking tens of thousands, maybe more.
No, more than that. More than that.
Yeah, it might have been $100,000 or more. I forget how much.
Yeah.
Well, we live in an age where, you know, there are people who can get on the internet and just become somebody. And it is really sad. And I don't know, Nick, you look really young. If you're in your 20s, I apologize. How old are you?
32.
Okay, forget. I don't apologize. Screw the people in 20.
He's still young. He's still young. 32 is still young. Yeah.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
But you're still young. Yeah. And Rye, you're young too. How old are you?
No, I'm a year younger than you. I'm 47.
No, we look young compared to what.
Yeah,
you know?
we look good. We're doing 40 good. Yeah.
I think for I'm 50 years, 2 years young. I think we look damn good for our age.
Hell yeah.
Now the headline tomorrow will be, these guys up there talk about how they look good.
Yeah.
What kind of paranormal show is this? What kind of paranormal show is this? They're talking about them damn Anunnakis. Oh my God. You know.
Start playing
The
that song.
Nephilim and the Nephilim blood keeping them young.
So before we head out, Nick, do you have anything else to talk about at all? that you want to say or talk about your show or what you got to tell us?
I mean, I guess there was one thing I wanted to just read really quick. I thought it was interesting, and it has to do with werewolves or dogmen. And I thought you'd like it, and I wanted to bring it up when you were talking about these dark elves in Iceland. Well, I was doing some research and stuff. I came across this Inuit legend about these creatures called the Adlets, and they're werewolf type beings that live under the ground, and they come up, in the far north up there. It could stretch as far as Iceland. I mean, Greenland is pretty damn close. So I just want to kind of mention that.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, without getting into another hour's worth of conversation, I don't really not a whole lot.
Well, the Amarok is one in Alaska, and my dear friend and colleague Ken Gerhard, he covered that when he was up there. Missing in Alaska was a really good show.
Missing in Alaska,
yeah.
And so, eating dinner with Ken multiple times. Oh yeah, the Amarok was great, and we've talked about all these weird things that he encountered when he was up there. But I'll tell you this: the Laplanders have a very weird thing. Now, this is another thing. People don't really know what the Laplanders are. Do you know what the Laplanders are?
Yeah, the northern. Don't tell me northern Finnish people, but the
not just the Finnish, Russian too, but the Siberian.
But like they're their own kind of like ethnic group.
Yeah, kind of like my dad's family's part Cossack. So Cossack, like Golovkin, the boxer, he's a Cossack, and the two, what's his name, the two Kalashnikovs, they were half, like whatever, but they're from Ukraine, Russia, and the Caucasus region, all that, whatever. Really weird though. Their closest ancestors actually are Scandinavian, which is bizarre. Just like the Hungarians, they're separated by several countries, but their closest relatives are Finnish. What it really is that those people are Viking, and they came down into a region and said, "We like it here. We're going to kill everyone and just take it over." That's what they did. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just what they did. And they fought with the Tartars, the real Tartars, not this Tartarian Empire people talk about. I don't know what to think of that. But the Tartars were a barbarian tribe, barbaric, typically Islamic. And Cossacks were Christians, so they clashed a lot, and the Cossacks pretty much did away with them. They also were the only people to ever sack Istanbul, and they made off with the Sultan's harem. So they were Black Sea pirates, very rough trade, very, very brutal guys. But the Laplanders, they come from this up north region, and one of the
Sami people, they call them too.
Yeah. They had this entity that they were in terror of, and it was basically a reindeer, which sounds silly because you're thinking about Santa Claus and the reindeer. But no, it was like a demonic reindeer that would come down and it would grab children and it would do all kinds of terroristic things. And they all have their own little boogeyman, but that's one of them. And we were talking earlier about the knot deer and these, the Wendigo. That's like their version of a knot deer. Do what?
Was it on 4 legs or 2?
It could be on, from what I remember, it could be on 4 legs or 2. Another interesting thing, too, if you're interested in this, especially for the ladies, the Laplanders make beautiful jewelry. But they also are plagued by another entity. It's called, like, don't quote me on this. Somebody's going to tell me I butchered the name or I didn't say it right. I need to go say it because then they'll get on me. I don't want to hear it. It's called the Umalak or Umalof or something like that. But it's basically these demonic dwarves that live in the snow. And so these Laplanders had to go out and clear the snow. If they saw footprints or anything, they would, because the reindeer, they heard reindeer. And so the Umalak or Emil, whatever they're called, they would come up out of the snow and try to kill their reindeer, and they could decimate a herd overnight. But they are basically inner earth beings that would come up out of the ground. And they were a constant nuisance. And so they kept shepherd dogs around with spiked collars, not just for the wolves, but to stop these gnome-like creatures. Well, I wouldn't call them gnomes because they're big and round and kind of heavy, so like dwarves. They're, again, what you would call sub-nature beings. And so, you know, somebody asked me recently about this, and I said this on Blondes and Booze last night, and I'll reiterate it here. they asked me, well, how did you learn all this? I said, well, just reading. And I said, how do you have so much time to read if you do this, this, and that? I sleep 5 hours a day. And I've been doing that for 40 years since I was a kid. I'm programmed that way. I'll sleep 4 to 5 hours and I'm good. And then after about a week or two, I'll fall out and I'll sleep maybe 6, 7 hours, but that's it. And I take 1 hour nap at night. So I guess altogether, and I don't do that all the time, but most of the time before I go to the gym, it recharges me and then I go to the gym. But I would say if you're up 18 to 19 hours a day, there was an American Dad episode. I don't know if anybody ever watched that show. I watch it sometimes. And he worked for the CIA, right? And Stan's like, I have this pill and can make me stay up and I don't need sleep. And it's not like speed. You just, you don't get high. You just stay awake, And so he was telling him, and his wife was like, well, Stan, I want to try it too. And he's like, no, this isn't for you. It's for me. So eventually she gets mad and she takes some and then she's staying awake, and then eventually they get like addicted to it because they don't have to sleep. So he starts having all these hobbies. And if I remember correctly, one of them was like, he was building boats or something, like bottles or something, because he had all this time. And he goes, amazing what you can do. And you don't sleep for 24 hours, So Francine, yeah, that's her name. Corey just said it. Corey Cole. So anyway, Francine's like, she wanted to do it too. She's like, Stan, so she did it too. And so they're both like getting all this work done, and they have all these hobbies and things that they are interested in, because somebody was mentioning that I played video games and I know about all these different types of things. I collected cards and I know about everything from whatever. And what I told him, I said, dude, it's I swear to you, what I think it is not only your mental capacity to learn and to retain knowledge, that's a big one, but it's also not sleeping, and this is true. It's a Cossack saying. There was like, he who loves sleep loves life, because they lived in a frozen wasteland where they were constantly at war. So when you're constantly at war, you don't sleep a lot. And so I tell people that there is something to that. It could just be in my blood. My mother and my father both were workaholics. They worked constantly. And they were just like, I was a latchkey kid. And so my mom and dad thought something was wrong with me when I was like 9 or 10. They took me to a sleep clinic because they said that he had insomnia. And I remember the doctor there, and he was like this, yeah, Matt. So there was like this doctor there, and he was like, I don't remember what he was. I just remember how he talked. And he goes, your child doesn't have a sleep issue. He just doesn't need it. It's like, he functions perfectly fine with little sleep. You make a problem for this child when you don't need it. That's you, Nick. And I don't remember what he was. He was like Austrian or something. And so my mom and dad were like, well, we need a second opinion. So they took me to another one. And then they just wanted money. They were like, well, we need to do more work. Give us more money. Yeah, my parents were like, we're fine with you being not sleeping. We don't care. They were just like, they'd rather me be an insomniac. They didn't care as long as they didn't spend money. So there's that. And I tell people, but I don't recommend it for people who are like, if you're ill, or if you got to have a day job, or you got to do what you do, Nick. I don't want you wrecking out there. So get all the sleep you can, but some people are just, they're wired differently. You don't need as much. And so that's something that Anthony can attest to. My wife can attest to. I literally get up every day about 11 o'clock, which sounds late for some people, but when you go to bed at 6 or 7, I get up at 11, 12. I'm ready to go. And I'm up all day. I'm talking on the phone. Matt, you can attest to that. We were talking the other day, and my phone doesn't stop ringing. And now it was like getting alerts for people's clock ends, do what you got to do. Multitasking, most people don't really understand that multitasking is not a real thing. You can't really do that. You have to focus on one thing, but if you focus on that and you do something else, as long as you can do it to the best of your ability, because a lot of times people will do one really crappy and do the other one okay, and then they're like, I'm multitasking. No, you're not. You're effing it up. So I tell people that, but I don't recommend it if you're not healthy. Sleep as much as you can, because sleep will get you rest, will get you, your body healthy.
It definitely helps you heal. But man, if you suffer from insomnia like I have since I was a baby, and with my health issues lately, man, it really slows the healing process down. It's not good, man. So if you can get sleep, man, get it, because I probably get an average, of like 3 hours a night at the most.
Shit. No, thank you.
No, it's not fun.
Nick, you look tired. You want us to let you go? You need to get out?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost 1 here.
You look
I gotta work in
bleary
the
eyed. You look
morning.
like, yeah, you've been a real trooper coming in.
I gotta get up at
gotta
5
work
and go to
tomorrow
work.
too, man. It sucks.
Oh shit.
You're Eastern Standard Time. What state are you in, Nick?
He's in
Vermont.
Vermont.
The country of Vermont.
The district Vermont. Yeah.
The city of Vermont.
Yeah, you already said that. I'm in Ohio, so I'm
Small
right with
town
you.
of Vermont.
Yeah.
Matt just made it happen exactly what he was talking about. People not knowing, they're like Vermont's a country, right? It's up in Canada.
It's our 11th. It's Canada's 11th province.
I love Vermont. I've been there twice. It's gorgeous. It's
Dude,
gorgeous.
I was telling them
Try
earlier
explaining
that I tell people I'm from Vermont, and they're like, what state is that city in? It's a state.
Really?
We're up here.
State is Vermont. Well,
You know,
Yeah.
why you're originally from Canada and you're living down in Mexico. He just completely bypassed the U.S. He just rolled his windows up and said, "I'm done with that."
Yeah.
I'm
Like,
not.
no, thank you.
It's like a bad neighborhood. He's like, "Oh,
Exactly. Slowly reach over and click, lock the doors.
oh." I tell you what it is. When you're going through the United States, there's a lot of beautiful, but it's like so weird because you can end up in a bad area real quick, like real quick. One of my friends is from Turkey, and he was like, "When I first came here, I think everything the same." No, it's not. You can end up in a bad area real quick. What's really sad though is there's so many people that they don't understand. Like I tried to explain to somebody the other day, a younger person, which was just forget it. I mean, I was trying to tell them what it meant, the British Commonwealth, and I was explaining it to them, and they were just like, "Okay, so Australia's British," and I'm like, "Dude, you don't understand, like how they ended up in World War II. All the British Empire had, I said, look, at one time India was a part of Britain, which is not really correct, and they had the port of Hong Kong, and but it's really weird when you look at history. It explains a whole lot. So I tell people you need to learn history, because people don't understand that. They do not get it, and that will tell you the tale of where we came from and where we're at and where we're headed. Very simple. If more people knew history, they would understand my beliefs, and instead of just bagging on me and being dumb about it, they would understand, But
well, hey Nick, before you go, what is the name of your show so I can link it in the live chat?
Yeah, it's Almost Canon.
Okay. Yeah, I want to post a link to that.
With one N.
never been to
Okay,
Vermont. I've been all over the world. Never been to Vermont.
Yeah,
it's really beautiful.
I mean, I don't think I'll ever leave. So,
well,
my wife's always saying but
you up there, you get some stories and get some research, and give us what's going on up there in that corner, because I don't have a researcher or anybody from Vermont, so that's important that we have that. Have you joined the IDP or the NADP, the North American Dogman Project?
No, but I do actually. You know Dave Leidy? You heard?
Oh,
Dave
yeah.
Leidy?
Mm-hmm. Dave Leidy.
Yeah, he's actually not too far away from me. I talk with him every now and then, hoping to get up there. He's got some pretty cool stuff going on.
Dave Leidy had a crazy experience. I think
he might have been one of the first to come out about it.
He talked about it on one of those shows, and then we talked. Here's a weird thing about Dave Leidy. I don't know if you know this, but his grandfather discovered according to what I read, his grandfather discovered the dire wolf. Like that was he was the one that he classified or something. Ask Dave about that. He can tell you. Whenever people talk about different people, I always think of something that I remember them by. That's how I remember Dave. But just ask him about that. Tell him to tell you about that.
Yeah.
And then
I've been trying to get him on the show. He's had some health problems himself. So
well, if you like you said, you guys you got your podcasters. I'm here if you need me. I'd be willing to share witnesses. I just talked to the producers over at Discovery Channel, and they're doing Expedition X, and I made good friends with Rob, the producer, and he asked me for witnesses, and I said, dude, I'll hook you up just like I did the guys from These Woods Are Haunted. I mean, I've talked to more people in this field, and I don't know how many. I'm just a bunch of people. And so if you guys need, help getting guests or whatever, dude, it's not a problem. I can hook you up. There's a lot of people who want their stories told. And you can either retell their story like I do, or you can bring them on the show like I do, or you can do what you want to do. But we're a community, and so much division. There's so much division. And I've been fighting so hard to bring us together because I want unification. I'm going to say something about Matt. One day I posted a picture on Facebook. I don't know if you remember this, Matt, but everybody was trying to guess what it was. Everybody was going, what is that? Oh, it means this. It means that. It's a lotus. It's this, is that. And Matt says it means unification. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
because it is Oda Nobunaga's clan symbol. It was his symbol he was the guy that stopped all the rituals and the bull crap and said, you know what? We're doing all this ceremony and crap and being polite and whatever, when what we need is unification. Agreed. Because he said the next time the Mongols come or the Chinese come, we're doomed because we're not united. And all it would take is one by one, we get knocked down. Yeah. Because everybody wants to have their own little whatever. And he said about the business of unifying everybody. Of course, if you know history, Toyotomi, his general, became the one that, and then of course after him, Tokugawa, and then Tokugawa was a dynasty that went on for a long time. But he had the right idea. He was a shogun that took over, and he had to fight his own little group, and then he expanded and he had to fight all these other people. But in the end, he didn't see the end of it, but his generals finished his work. And they unified Japan, and Japan was always united ever since. And they were the better for it. Yep. And that's, Matt, you got that. You were the only one that said that it means unification, because that's what it is. And I don't want to fight. I don't want war. What I want, though, is for everybody to get along. But that's a pipe dream. We've seen that. But we got to work together, because if we work together, the people that have us in bondage, and people don't want to hear this, they're keeping us ignorant, and we're in bondage. We are literally in bondage. And some people are happy to be in bondage, and they'll fight you to not be free. And I tell people, look, just you got to liberate your mind from the constraints of fallacies. And you need to come to the reality of what we're dealing with here. Some of it is in the UFO community. Some of it's in the Bigfoot community. Some of it's in the ghost and spirit community. Yep. Some of it is in Dogman. Yep. And I'm sorry to say that there is a little bit of New Age stuff that's correct. Now, I'm not big in the New Age. People have accused me of that. People have accused me of being a Muslim apologist. I don't even know what that is, Islamic apologist, whatever, because I talk about the Quran. But then they say that I'm a Hindu worshiper of Brahma because I talk about the Hindu religion, or they say that I'm a Buddhist or whatever. I'm really none of those things, because no religion is correct. They all have a kernel of truth. And it's like a star fell from the sky. Each one picked up a piece and said, I got the truth. Yes, you do, but you don't have the whole truth. And that's the problem. And I'm not trying to create one world religion. That's ridiculous. What I'm trying to do is tell you that there's truth here. We need to go where that is. But there's a lot of crap that's been lied about, and I'm trying to pull that out, the wheat from the chaff. And so
I'm sorry, Josh. I didn't mean to.
No. Go ahead. Simple as that. That's a simple explanation.
I just wanted to say one thing, because you brought up something that you and I have talked about. There's something that, and my really good friend, Ernie Davio, Rye, Ernie. Ernie's had one of the most, and in fact, Nick, I'd be happy to, I would be happy as well to talk to you. I'd like to set you up with my buddy, Ernie. I think you'd like to talk to him. But Ernie and I have, specifically for a long time now, since we became friends, it's been months since he came on my show and we discussed this. Very much what Josh was just touching on. I don't know, maybe about 6 months ago, Ernie and I started discussing this. Rye, you okay? You looking at a UFO or something?
No, he's about to get abducted. He's like,
It just started raining here. It just started raining, and of course I'm on the rooftop.
Video for us, but you know, one thing that we discussed and we're very big on, is how the camps, as Josh touched on. You have your Bigfoot, and you know, I don't want to offend anyone, but you have your apers that are just only want to discuss Bigfoot. They refuse that anything else exists, which for me, being somebody that 100% had a real legitimate dogman experience with 3 of my friends, to have people believe in Bigfoot unequivocally, they have no doubt, they believe in it. Oh, but dogman, that can't exist, that's silly. Well, you know, Ernie had an incredible Bigfoot experience. I had my experience with the dogman, and we have really come together, and we have a goal along with other people, and Josh, and you know, we've spoken about it. I want as well, Josh, as you said, and Rye, we've talking about, we want to bring all of these camps together. It's not a separate camp up here, the UFOs, the USOs, the dogman, the Bigfoot, the chupacabra, the Wendy. They all need to come together. Everybody needs to come together, because regardless of if you don't believe it or not, this stuff is all connected in one form or another. Better for everybody to come together and bring this information and this community together, because it's silly to separate it. And there are some people out there, like, you know, your big friend, Josh, Ken Gerhardt, who I'm happy that I've started to get closer with, did not really want to touch the dogman phenomena. Lyle didn't really want to touch it years ago. Now all of a sudden, these guys have at least have an open mind, and they're like, well, there is something going on there. And Josh, you yourself had said that. I remember
Lyle wasn't going to come to the first conference, because when me and Ken approached him, it was a united front. It was me, Ken, Barton, and David Weatherly. And so we all kind of ambushed Lyle, and we said, look, we're all on the phone. Okay. We're like, Lyle, and I spoke first. I said, come to the Dogman conference. And Lyle goes, oh, you know, I don't really know a lot about Dogman. I'm just a Bigfoot guy, you know. And I said, Lyle, with all due respect, you are whatever guy you study, whatever you do, you're a very smart guy. And I didn't know that he was an English major until we drove 10 hours together to Tennessee, and then drove 10 hours back. And he told me his whole life story. And I was so sick of the podcasting, and I was so sick of the trash and people talking. And he told me, he says, if you're going to stay in podcasting, if you're going to write a book, whatever you decide to do it to the best of your ability. And he goes, and look for people who've done it before. And then David Weatherly told me, he says, it's a pet peeve of his. He goes, just because you can don't mean you should. He goes, there's a lot of people podcasting that shouldn't be doing it. People writing books that shouldn't be doing it. He goes, and they're not, it's not correct. So then you get on Amazon, you buy a book, and it looks like it's written by a 5-year-old, little golden book with no punctuation. And you're like, then the dogman did the Bigfoot head, went around, and then he went down, and then there was a cliff. Whoa, and he died. And you're like, what? It's like, dude, what the hell? There's people in our field that do that, and then they're like, it's a self-published book. They're horrible. Oh, they're horrible. But if you do what I did, which is very simple, go to these guys who've written books. Matt, I'm going to tell you, you came to me, and I'll say this in front of, what do we got? 485 people here. I'll say this in front of whoever's here. Matt, I am not the guy to go to write a book. I've written 2, and I'm on my 3rd one.
And I asked Josh, everybody,
half of 2 others, but let's put it this way. I am not the OG at that. You got guys who are way, way more experienced at that. Go to Barton, get information about how to write the book. He's the guy who I think is one of the best in the field. In humanoids, it's incredible. It's an incredible book. Go to Ken, go to Lyle, go to David Weatherly. David would be my second choice, and then Chad Lewis.
Oh yeah,
Chad turns him out. Chad is an amazing. I would say Nick Redfern is I was writing with him before he had to go back to England. But go to them. Go to them. And another one,
another person I met.
yeah, Nick Redfern. He's another one.
Yeah.
I mean, just keep, go to the people. These OGs have been writing books for a long time. There's a lot of good ones out there. Don't take me, as if you're going to learn from me, I learned from them. So there's you go to the masters and let them teach you, because I'm not the master at that. But if you want to know about YouTubing, podcasting, whatever, I would say even podcasting, talk to Tony Merkel about interviewing people. He's the interview guy. He knows he's so good at what he does. And then the expanded perspectives guys retelling stories. They were the OGs. I didn't do anything special. I tell people that all the time. I didn't, they're like, oh, you've changed the game, whatever. I just came along and I did what I did. And I pay complete respect to the people who came before me and the people who will be here when I'm gone. And those people that got me into this by listening to them, expanded perspectives, Brenton Solon, the late Brenton Solon, God rest his soul, J.C. Johnson, who's gone, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, she's gone, and Linda Godfrey. I have to give her a ton of credit. And I will even give credit to somebody that I'm not even friends with. I'll give credit to Vic Cundiff, because without him, I wouldn't be sitting here. And a lot of people know that, me and him had a falling out. And I have my reasons for not liking him, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. It's not the place. But I don't agree with his methods or whatever, but so what? Look at the proofs in the pudding. I mean, he does, people like him and they like his show and they like his style. And so you give him credit for that. And I'm not a fan of this guy either, but I'll say his situation, the guy from the swamp from New Orleans, I'm not going to say his name, but I listened to some of his early work and he did a good job. I think he just kind of went, but it's my opinion. And I tell you this, I give credit where credit is due. I tell the truth. Tell the truth. That's what I'm telling. There are people out there who do a good job at what they do. Pay attention to those people and watch how they do it, and then ask them for advice. One of the worst things you can do, though, is to ask one of these guys for advice and then immediately just go and do the opposite of what they told you, because then it offends them. Because I'll tell you a quick one here. Ryan Edwards. And they know this. Ken, he went over to Ken's house because Ryan lives in San Antonio, and him and Sibylla Irwin, I don't know if you know Sibylla, she's another one of my colleagues, lives in San Antonio, lives in San Antonio. So Ryan goes over to Ken's house, and Ken's like, I'm talking to him about this, about writing. And he's like, and he's just not listening. And so, but when he wrote his book, once it came out, then I think that you see that he did listen. You don't know that he's actually listening to you, because when I have conversations with him, he does it to me, but the kid actually is absorbing what he's saying because he is super intelligent. And Ryan Edwards has got to have a long career in this field if he keeps doing what he's supposed to be doing, because I really believe that he's on his second book now, and I think he's done a great job. Another OG from the Bigfoot field is Ron Moorhead. Look at Ron Moorhead and what he's done.
Mr. Moorhead, he's amazing.
He was at my conference too. Ron, he spoke, and great guy.
I met him too there.
Yeah, the Sierra Sounds. I mean, these are great, groundbreaking people. I'm nobody special. I just came along and said I'm passionate about what I do and I enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But the only thing I can say as a legacy leaving behind, if something ever goes whatever, is that I was able to bring these people together. And that has been my number one goal. And like I said before, it'll make some gnash their teeth and others jump for joy. But it's a fact that I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to keep bringing people together, because every conference I was at led to these amazing interactions with these amazing people. And there was a ton of collaborations. And every time I see one, I'm so happy, because that's what I want. My obsession, my goal is unification of this field, because that will bring us closer to the truth. 100%. And my goal is to get to God. And people don't want to hear it. They don't want to, then that's fine. Don't believe it. But like I said on Facebook today, I said, just because you don't like me, that's fine. Don't like me. You don't like my family, that's fine. But the relentless attacks, that's going to stop. There's no place for that at all. I forgive you. Don't do it again. Just leave me alone, please. If you don't like what I'm saying or doing, just go away. We don't have to be friends, but we don't have to be enemies. We can all be together, right? Because this is what it's all about. And I do thank you, Nick, for coming on. I really love the audience. I think we had a great conversation. I think we're going to have more. And I hope that you guys continue to grow. I love helping smaller podcasters. If you're thinking about writing a book, though, there's other better people than me to go learn how to write a book. I mean, the first book I wrote, I was like, man, what am I doing here? You know, I kept changing everything. And Eddie,
I completely decided to. And I just, Josh, before Nick takes off, I want to say something to him. And Rye, you know a ton of people already. Nick, I'm going to say this to you. One of the most important things that I have ever done, I would not have my channel. I would not know the tons of people that I know. Like you, Josh just mentioned, like one of the people whose numbers on my phone, Ron Moorhead. The OG, I mean, Ron Moorhead, Ken Gerhard. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on. Josh Nanocchio. And I'm going to say it like this. If I did not go, and my wife, if she was here, she would say this, and I wouldn't have to. And she doesn't get involved in this for the most part, other than she had to wear, after I hit 10, she had to wear a I Believe in Dogman shirt. I loved it. But I would not have my channel. I would not know the people I know if I did not go to last year's conference. So I would recommend to you, being somebody starting out, go to Josh's conference. And anybody thinking about starting a channel that maybe is on the cusp, maybe someone out there that did what I was doing, that just told their experience, go to the conference. It changed my life. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and we talked about it last night on Blonde's Booze, because I was kind of in a mood because there were people there that somebody was in there and he said, you know, they took him out, but not important. I just, you know, I'm tired of being raked through the coals, and it's like, you know, but going after my family, that's not cool. You know, here's the thing. I don't know if we're going to do another conference. I don't know. We don't know yet. You know, I'm gonna meet with Ken at the end of the month. I'm going to San Antonio, and we're going to talk and eat dinner and do what we got to do, and we'll figure it out. We're going to talk, and we're going to decide what we're going to do. He's been my partner in this when we do the conferences or whatever. I want to say this. There's a guy going around saying that he's the one that did it. Dude, that guy is that guy is a nut. He's wrong. He did not introduce me to Barton or to Martin or to, you know, Daryl Denton. He had nothing to do with our conference, absolutely nothing at all. He says he was at the first one. He wasn't. So if anybody's heard that from him, please don't believe this man. I had to say that because he's saying things that are just not true. And, you know, I don't know what his end game is, and I don't even care. I don't give a crap what he does or what he says. But the bottom line is this. The truth is the truth. If we have another conference, it'll be great, and it'll be as good as the first one and the second one. Second one was bigger and even better than the first one. And I'm not trying to top that one. I just say, hey, you know what? We have another one, and if it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. And then if it's not, then we know to stop. That's it. That's all we can do. But I appreciate everybody that was here tonight. I appreciate everybody. And Ry Voss, definitely stay down there in Mexico. I know it's humid as all hell down there all the time.
Well, it started raining actually, so I'm like, oh crap, I got to go through the rain because I have to go out from my rooftop to get back into the house. So I'm gonna hopefully I don't get too wet.
That's crazy, dude. Well, it was good having you guys on. Nick Willard, folks. Hopefully we'll see some more things from you. You know, a lot of people have a job and they do it as a career. And Jason Bland, he's been doing this for 8 years, and he's not known like he should, because to me, he's one of the unsung heroes of this field. He is an amazing YouTuber, podcaster, whatever you want to call it. And I think Chris James is another one. I think that they're underrated. Chris James will be on with me tomorrow night, folks. The Alien Agenda. Show up with me. We don't just talk about that. We talk about everything. We get into everything, and we have a panel and we do what we do. Tomorrow night, we're going to have Michael Anthony on. I think Christopher Jordan and Rob Yox, right?
Yeah.
And then next Saturday, it'll be Jason McLean. Dr. Bertram will be on. We'll have some other people. Rye and Matt, I'd like to have you come on regularly on Friday if you're not doing anything, but it's up to you if you want to.
I'm game for that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we'll interview our next guest or whatever, and stick around, Nick. At some point, we'll have you come back on, and we can, you know, maybe you can co-host with me too. I'd love to have you on.
I felt horrible that, you know, I couldn't get on with you guys earlier. I think a dog man was chewing on my wires outside or something.
Right. And next Friday, I will not be here. I'm going to Imagine Dragons. I'm actually we're headed out
Nice.
to. Yeah,
Wow,
my wife
great
surprised me for
time.
our anniversary.
Nice.
So you're gonna just go to a concert instead of coming onto my show?
I am. I got some priorities, Josh. I got some priorities.
Wow.
Well, they're clearly backwards.
Clearly.
Slack. Double the slack. I'll pull it up.
There you go. As long as your internet's working.
Yeah, when you didn't show up, Matt, I got to be honest, because you're going to go back and watch this. I was talking mad crap to Rye and to Nick about you. What
big time. Oh, I know.
I was like, "What is wrong with this guy? What a poo-poo caca head."
I'm glad you're coming. You're coming clean on that one, Josh. You know, because
In fact, you didn't see it, but Rye was like messaging me, "How are you going to break the news of what you said about Matt?"
Yeah, I know. Totally. I'm like,
I don't know what I'm going to.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry, Matt. I mean, don't feel bad. We're gonna make sure that we give you one lash per minute that you were late, and the punishment will continue until your tardiness ceases.
That's okay. I will accept it.
What is that? The old pirate saying: "The beatings will continue until morale improves."
Yeah.
And morale improves. Exactly.
We're just going to keep beating you until you're happy. Okay?
That's okay.
Are you happy? Yeah. That's what my
If
mom
you guys could have heard me, in fact, at one point I'm like, "Oh crap! I hope my camera's not running right now." I went off. I was flipping out, man.
Well, you know what though? The further you go into this, the more you'll know that it becomes an investment to do it, and get it. I think you've done everything right up to this point, Matt. You went around on a bunch of different shows. You got known, let people know. So when you came out the gate, you came out strong. I think you did the right thing. The thumbnails are very important. You're doing everything because Nanokio, my friend Josh, he's coached you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I got to say to that is Nanokio has taught you well, but you are not a
Yeah. No, I am not. He is. Yeah. You know what? The guy that I met at the conference and one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and Josh also. Sorry.
And Anthony behind. Sorry, Rod. I just want to say Anthony's behind the camera. We can't see him. One of, and I really, mean this. Not brown nose and right. The Turner family is part of the M family, and Rye, you are Nick, man. You come on in with us.
Heck yeah. Yeah, you'll ride with a ruthless clan. All right, we're down. No, I'm just
the Black Widows, fear the
cult.
Across the land. But Nick, Ryan, you guys make sure y'all stay in touch and work together, help each other grow.
Of course.
Yeah.
And Josh, what I was going to say is, I've talked to the wife about coming up. If you're going to have not that I'm adding more pressure, but if you're having a conference, I would say there's a very good chance we're coming.
Well, good. That'd be good. I don't know yet. Hold your breath, because March 30th, I'll be talking I'll be eating with Ken and Ann Celine, and we'll have a talk, and we'll decide then the fate of the conference, because
you better do it.
He's sick and tired of crap, always getting bashed for whatever little thing, and it gets tiring, it gets old, it's just.
I'm going to be standing at the conference by myself. No one's there. I'm just going to be there. I'll be like,
I'll be there, Matt. Me and Matt will be there. We'll have a table. We'll just sitting at a table in an empty place.
We'll yell at people on the street, "Come over here! We're doing an impromptu conference."
like the meme. He's like, "There should have been a conference here. Change my mind."
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But anyways, guys, it was good having you. Oh, and don't forget, go and like and subscribe, and then Nick's channel. Your name of the channel again? Say it.
Yeah, it's Almost Canon.
Okay.
Sometimes I go by Almost Canon Podcast. I mean, I do have some stuff on YouTube, but not a whole lot. It's mostly, Spotify.
Mostly podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, are you on Facebook?
Yeah, definitely.
Nick's on Facebook, yeah.
Hit me up on Facebook, man.
Matt Imsh, yeah. Matt Imsh, Planet 412, Rivas's Codex of, what is it again? It's
Odega's Codex of Curiosities.
And now you have a group called the Supernatural Town Hall Sessions.
We do.
Correct.
We do. Thank you to Nelly and yourself there.
Every
Yes.
Tuesday, yeah.
We gave you Paranormal Lounge, so do good things with it. Do great things with
Thank
it.
you,
We
Nelly
will,
and
we will.
Josh and Anthony. As always, is just phenomenal. And
Yeah.
you
And
know,
so for everybody at Paranormal Roundtable, thank you for listening. I'm gonna let you guys roll here one by one.
thank you.
Bye, Rye. I'll see ya.
Yep, for sure. I'll talk to you guys later. I got to pack up and get this rain is starting to get a little bad here.
Okay. All right. I'll see you.
Good night.
Good
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Matt, good night. I'll see you. Nick, it was a pleasure having you on. Thank you for being a guest. I appreciate it. And don't be a stranger. Okay.
Yeah, no. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it as well.
Yeah. Get
was
you
fun.
some sleep. It was fun.
Oh yeah, I'm going right now.
Good night, Nick.
Watch out for that snow. I'll see you.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So, folks, that was Rye Voss and Nick Willard and Matt Imsch. I hope you enjoyed the show. Every Friday we have guests and they come on, and we're going to do it again on tomorrow night. We're going to have a bunch of people come on a panel. We're going to have fun. It's going to be just like this. It's basically just this again. It's just double, love having guests, love having visitors, to the show, to the studio. Hi, Lee Tracker E. You were one of our friends at the show here. You were here.
Yeah.
So we have a good time here. We love everybody that comes in and participates, and we really love the audience. Everybody, thank you for everybody that donated. Is there a way to thank everybody on here?
Yeah. Go here. There we go.
Go ahead.
Okay. We got Lucky the Beagle and Molly just became a member. Thank you for that. Zachary Factory for a $10 super chat. Newest cult member, monthly dues. Lucky the Beagle and Molly again with the $20 super chat. She says, love the last stories. Talk with Derek Gilbert and his wife Sharon. They have several great books on the Levant. We have Jason Broussard coming through with $50, saying towards a camera fund. I was compelled by the wicked eyebrows. Now show me the Kool-Aid. Liberty 1776 with a $20 super chat saying, please don't unleash your Santa-like brows on us. Oh, let me show this on screen. Of course, we have Miguel Guerra with $20. Here's my cult member upkeep payment. I hope I'm closer to getting that limited edition PRT / Shasta Volin skateboard. Glad to see you and all the PRT kinfolk. Love you guys. What is that? JG72 with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. Off radar came through.
Off-roader.
I'm sorry. Off-roader. Hey guys, great show. What did Gerald say about the missing persons in the national parks and forests? As a hunter and mountain snowmobiler from northeastern Nevada, the missing 411 intrigues me. I hope this helps with some new equipment.
Off-roader. Try to keep that when we go to do the show on Sunday. Maybe you can hit me back up. You don't need to donate. I'm just put it in capitals and let's try to talk a little bit about that. We did touch on that a little bit. So we can talk about that. I didn't get a whole lot about it, but I promise. Okay, I'll talk about it if you ask. Just remind me. I can talk to them between now and then. I don't know what they're doing this weekend. I have no idea. I'm not going to lie to you and say that we're like friends just because I interviewed them, but I'll see what they have to say about that, and I'll get a little more information, and maybe we can get into that. What did I say we were going to talk about? We have a goat man, a pig man, and then we have the scarecrow, and then also Carlos. So those are the 4 things we're going to talk about so far on Sunday. Tomorrow night, we're going to get into some weird stuff too. So be here tomorrow night, folks, and then again on Sunday.
All right, so moving on, we got a couple super chats from JRB, a $2 one. Great show, guys. Another one. He was asking a question at this point about Disney and MK Ultra.
I'm not going to touch that one right now.
Yeah,
I got my book shelf.
I'm not sure the context. Deadpool Kid with $5. Jake Paul needs to wear headgear and hopes he still has his ear intact. Well, if he wears headgear, it's going to be worse for him because it makes your head a bigger target.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully he does wear it and gets knocked around. All right, and 2 shadows for $5 for their super chat. Thank you all so very much for that. We appreciate every little bit. We appreciate your
everything
time.
Anybody gives us, we're very appreciative of it. And thank you for everybody
And if you if you can't give your money, then give us your time, and we value that. And also, if you're gonna give us your time, you might as well give us a like. Just hit the like button. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't even have to be subscribed. It's one of the best ways to help out any channel you like, that you enjoy. It helps them with YouTube's algorithm. So the more likes, the more exposure a video gets. It's a really good way to just say, hey, thank you. It doesn't cost anything.
And if we do the conference, I hope that you guys show up. But at this point, I'm leaning toward not doing it. I have so many projects to do, and one of them is a possible documentary this spring. And if it doesn't happen, then I may have to do that in the fall, because I'm going to be working on the syndication coming up in the next 2 weeks. But first, I got to get my taxes done. Again, just like anybody else, I got to deal with it, and it sucks, but it's part of life. And I got a lot of irons in the fire. But like I said, luckily for you, I only sleep 5 hours a day. So, you know. But I love you. I really do. I love you guys. And please don't get it twisted, man. When we talk about something, it doesn't mean my belief is set in stone. My beliefs are ever changing according to the information that I get. But I'm going to search and keep searching, turning over rocks, because anybody who's made up their mind 100% about something, anything at all, other than my belief in Christ, but other than that, there's nothing set in stone, because as information goes, you absorb it. You have to change, or you're a fool, and I'm not a fool. So these people, let them be who they are. It's okay. We just pray for them. We pray for them. I hope that we have a good show tomorrow, and I want to leave everybody with a good feeling, because I love you guys. Do me a favor and pray for my friend Mike. He's going through some stuff. Yeah, we all need prayer sometimes, and pray for us too. Please pray for me and my wife, Anthony, Tony, and my brother, and Scorpion, and Stefan, and all of us together. We are all a team. Pray for Bettina and Maddie and all of our friends, Barton and Letitia. We are all going through it right now. I'm telling you, not everybody's talking about what's going on in their lives, but we could all use your prayers. We really could, because all of us have been suffering bad because of people doing things. And we just want peace, man. I just want to be left alone and do my show. That's what I want, man. That's all I ask. And pray for everybody that is maybe being not nice to you, because maybe if God touches their heart, then, maybe they'll change. So just pray. That's all you can do. Forgive them and just move on. So we love you. Thank you for listening to PRT, and good night.